we still not get Fords? Mm-mm. Are they talking about taking stuff out when we get 50, 75,000 miles to sell on the market? But at some point we need to.
How's everybody doing? Can you hear me okay? Okay, I just wanted to be sure. So we have a special guest tonight. Call our meeting in order. It's Miss Lily Dyer, and she is the daughter of Brandon and Lindsay Dyer. She goes to Grove School, and she's in the 6th grade, and I think we just had a birthday. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So she's going to call our meeting to order. All right. You're right.
I bring this meeting to order.
So we'll call the roll. Go ahead.
Matthews.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Flood. Vogt.
Here.
Rutherford.
Here.
Seahorn.
Here.
Salter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. All righty, so we do invocation. Who we got, Mr. Flood? There we go. Okay, so we've got Tiffany Monroe from over here at St. Paul's. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we are so thankful for the way that you move in and through this community. But especially today as we embark on Women's History Month, Lord, we lift up to you our future leaders like Miss Lily. We lift up to you the women who have led in this community in a variety of ways in our past, in our present, and in our future. As you have with them, lead all of us gathered here to see what we can do, to see a need and fill a need, to see a neighbor and serve a neighbor. Gracious God, I ask your blessings on each of our leaders tonight and always, that it would be you that moved them, that it's you that inspires them, and it's you that continues to encourage them. Thank you, God, for the community of Shawnee, and thank you for leading us onward. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
So much. Join us in the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 1 is citizen participation, and I've got names here. So, same as always, 3-minute limit, 12-minute limit per topic. We will be listening, I promise. We will not be responding to you at this time, so you may hear responses later on in commissioners' comments. Looks like first on my list, I have Mr. Jeremy Davidson.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. While
Nope.
they're coming up and signing in, I just was asked to clarify to the board that
Absolutely.
despite the fact that we're not allowed to have dialogue during citizen comments, if there is need for clarification, that is allowed under the ordinance.
Okay, very good. Appreciate that. I didn't see Jeremy. Jeremy, I think you're up.
Yep.
Okay, so you're done then. Thank you so much.
We'll see you later.
We'll see you in a minute. Okay, that was easy. All right, Rob Morris, you're up, sir. I think, Mike, you're right after Rob.
Okay, good evening. First, I'd kind of like to see the consent agenda 2H pulled and just discussed a little bit. I'm actually happy with the vote as it's going to happen, but I'd like to hear it discussed a little bit. Second is, I've been asking for records from the city, the county, and from Shawnee Ford themselves, and I've been denied for public record. Shawnee Ford is a public body. Here's why. Public body, supported in whole or in part by public funds, or entrusted with the expending of public funds, or administering public property. On the grant program that I'm asking about, I can meet 2 of those 3 right now, and it's only required to meet 1. Now, for a public body, they're a 501c6 business, and they're nonprofit. However, in Attorney General 2002-37, it states that yes, private, nonprofit, and for-profit organizations can be a public body and subject to open meeting and open record law. Also, we have disclosure of information voluntarily supplied. This information was supplied by somebody at this podium that I'm asking for, so it already exists. And underneath that, where it says voluntarily supplied, subject to full disclosure pursuant to 24A1. Now, I gave you everything from Drew Edmondson to Mike Hunter for the Attorney General's opinions. I gave you the open meeting law, and then I gave some questions. But again, I wasn't against the program to begin with. I set it up here in front of you. However, I'd like to know if the task force, the final 3 that had a signature on the sign-off, did they go with the task force recommendation every time? If not, why? It's not a privacy issue. Why? Now, the very last page I gave you shows the first 33 applicants that have gotten money so far. I'm just curious if we were going to go first come, first serve, and there's 64 total, why we jumped. Why isn't it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down the road? We got 64, 53, 7. That's also in the packet. Now, as far as, we're supposed to have a 90-day review to see if they complied with the plan they put in force, and then revisit the program and see about giving people more money. We're not doing that. We're just adding to it. And I mean, are we going to have another one of these or not? Because I know of quite a few businesses around here that missed out completely, didn't even know about it. And I'd love to see them have a chance too. So with that, I asked the commission tonight, why can't I have these records that I asked for? As stated on the very first page, what I'm asking for specifically, all 64 names of qualified applicants, all 64 monetary amounts awarded or to be awarded, all 64 rubrics, and the method of calculating the amounts awarded. I've heard it anything from, we had 2 ideas for $5,000, we didn't like one, so we split the difference. Okay, and I don't necessarily agree with that way, but if that's a way, then was it done across the board? I just want it to be fair for everybody. With that, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, next up is, Mike, you're up. Mike Little. How are you, Mike?
I'm good. I'm Mike Little. I'm old, so I've been fully vaccinated, and I can't hardly breathe with this on, so if you'll let me. I'm Mike Little. I'm representing the development on 2 East Main, co-developer with Central Oklahoma Community Action. I'm here on the behalf of Barbara Loudermilk, myself, and Norm Seberg. And I'm concerned about item number 12, how it will impact our project, the arts situation. I know we need art in Shawnee, and I fully supported Mayor Mills back when he put horses around town, but just concerned how that's going to impact that project and future development in Shawnee. And then I was going to give you an update. We're hopefully about a month away for applying for full permits. We've already had a pre-meeting with Rebecca and her team, and we're looking forward to going forward with making application, hopefully during the month of March, to SHPO, which is the State Historic Society. They will either approve our plans or turn them down. They have 30 days to do that, and then if they approve them, they'll send them on to the DC, where the Federal Parks Department will have 30 days to approve them and or send them back. So hopefully we can close possibly in June or July. You remember this is the project where we had the county give 12 lots to the city, and then the city ended up giving them to the development team, the co-development team. And we hopefully will have funding. We already have the approval, and the building is on the National Register. And we already have the tax credits. We will hopefully have funding through a local investor investor here in Shawnee that's out of Arkansas by the end of the month, which would be great because that's going to impact the bank and plus bring more money into town. So that's my main concern, is that how that will impact our project. And being a historic building, we won't be able to do anything outside of what the Parks Department will allow us to do, either inside or out. Now, the building will consist of 23 units of housing on the 2nd through the 6th floor. COCA will end up with offices on the 1st and 2nd floor and most of the basement. And they hope to possibly get funding through some different grants for a incubator, possibly project where we'll be allowed to have industry come in, similar to what is in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. They have an incubator program where you can come in and have an office and have internet, Wi-Fi, and set up an office. So that's where we're at, and we're going forward with that, and hopefully it will be happening by the end of the summer. We'll have some good building weather.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
And I would be happy for anybody to email and/or contact me, anybody on the commission. I've visited with several people about that, and be happy to walk you through the building.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, where's my list? Next up is Teresa Cody. Come on up, Teresa.
Hello, I just wanted to speak a little bit, had some questions about the item number 12, the public art on the agenda tonight. Public art, in my opinion, should be considered a very important step a very big step for our community. And I think there has not been enough conversation in our community to talk to the people about what it is and how it affects us, and some of the issues that could come up. I know that it's on the 2040 plan, I realize that, but I think people need to know. I mean, I want to know who in the community has any knowledge of public art or this ordinance. I think that's a very small number. How many understand how they could be affected by this group's decisions? According to the 2040 plan, Chapter 9, page, well, I've got it on the other page. Just a minute. I did this such a hurry, I've missed a thing here. Page 191, item 1. This project has been set up to remove barriers, according to what the 2040 plan, to encourage public art across the community. When are we going to have those personal community conversations? Why aren't we using more community members in decision-making? When was the last presentation by the city to reach out to the public for conversation and input? How are we involving the community with this ordinance written how it is? It seems that 22-741 is not really involving the community. There's a lot of outside people we're bringing in, and I know you have to have experts, I understand that, and you have to have ways to bring them in, but I think we need to focus on some of the input from the community first. Also, item number 22-742 talks about how you don't even have to be a member of the community, basically, in order to be on this board. And so I think that needs to be discussed more, one-on-one, and each of you with the people in your wards as to what they expect, how they understand it. Because you've got to be able to explain it to them and understand what their needs are too. Because it does affect us all, and it is supposed to be a way to bring us together. Also, on February the 8th, I had a conversation with Oklahoma City. I know they're restructuring a whole bunch of things with their art. And I don't even know if you guys have reached out to them or been aware of that with us having the snowstorm and everything. And I would encourage you to do that, to see some of the things that have come up with them. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see anybody else on our list, so I guess we will, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Would this be an appropriate time to ask for clarification on a subject that was talked about?
Yeah.
I would like to see if you can clarify, me not being an attorney, the difference in open meetings and open records.
There's two separate statutory provisions under state law. They're not necessarily related. And so I do get concerned at times that there is a confusion or conflation of the two at times. But they are separate and distinct. Obviously, Open Meetings Act governs posting of agendas, what is required in those agendas to make sure that all persons in the community have the ability to know what's going to be discussed in these open meetings, sets forth the provisions for executive session, things of that nature. Open Records Act, again, just pertains to the records of the municipality or political subdivision.
So you can be subject to, zoning forward, subject to Open Meetings Act and not be subject to open records.
That is possible. I would, without getting too deep in the weeds, Commissioner, as to just to clarify as to Mr. Morris's comment with regard to his request to the city, that is not a regularly kept record of the city of Shawnee, which is what I think relevant to this body. And so that request cannot be fulfilled because we cannot produce what we do not possess.
Okay? Answers my question.
I was going to ask if comments beat me to it.
I couldn't wait that long. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, sir. All righty, we'll move on to item 2. Consider approval of the consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to pull out of the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull item D and item H, please.
I'm sorry, D, and which?
H.
H. D. Somehow mine didn't. Oh, you know what? I bet that's why she brought me another one. There we go. That makes sense now. D and H. Anybody else got anything? No? Okay. Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with items D and H pulled.
I second. All righty. Daniel and Travis. All righty. So we have a motion and a second for approval of everything but D and H. We'll call the question. And that passes 7-0. So now we will consider D and H. I guess we would do that separately, so. Since you started the conversation.
Yeah,
why
no,
don't you
I don't
start?
have an issue with item D. It's just 392,000 crosses my threshold of consent agenda.
It's a big number.
It is a big number. And I think it's worth celebrating and noting,
Absolutely.
modernizing our police force, and I just think quick discussion with
If, go ahead.
Can we put, Chief, do you mind us putting you on the spot on item D?
Come on up, Chief.
I'm guessing there's some cost savings and the way you're gonna outfit the cars.
Well, basically, right now, with the way production's been with COVID-19 and everything else going on, it's hard to get police vehicles, and there's only a few making them. You've got the Ford SUV, you've got the Tahoe, and you've got the Charger and the Durango, and then Dodge pickups. Well, the Dodge pickups aren't practical for us in town. We got some of the Durangos. The problem is we can't get any more right now, and it's going to take forever to order them. Unfortunately, just no fault of the officers, but just them doing their job. They've actually had some vehicles that have been lost while they were doing their job.
And so we're down for the count right now, and what we can get our hands on is the Dodge Chargers. They do come at a savings of what we were getting the Durangos for, so that's a plus at the same time. And so that's what we're looking to do. They're proven. I mean, the Highway Patrol uses them. I mean, we're not concerned about their durability in town and lasting us a while. So we can get a little more vehicle for our buck and still outfit the officers and take care of some of the vehicles that we've lost recently, so.
Question on that.
Yes, sir.
When a vehicle is lost, do we not get replacement, collect on our insurance and replace that vehicle?
We do. Sometimes we go after, if there's insurance to be had, you know, from like the suspect that does that, and they actually own that vehicle and it's not stolen or something else. We try, but most insurance companies will not pay on an illegal act, even if it's the insured driving it. So if they've actually committed an illegal act like that, it's void in coverage a lot of times. So it falls back to our city's insurance coverage, which is OMAG. And honestly, like, we're talking some of those Ford SUVs that we lost, they're worth more to us on the street than what we get. I mean, we're getting about $13,000 back, and it's not even enough to buy a new vehicle, but we could have used them for 3 more years, you know? So we're kind of at a loss from the get-go, even when we collect insurance.
Makes sense. I just thought you just lose one and you replace it.
Yeah, it would be great if it worked that way, you know?
And if you could get them.
Yeah, if you can get them. That's been the big issue.
It's been a big issue because of production.
Right.
Yes.
Your guys gonna upfit these as they have been doing?
Yes, we're still gonna do the savings with our people upfitting them, and that saves us about $4,000 or $5,000 on every car that we upfit ourselves, so doing the work ourselves, so.
They're doing a good job with that.
Yeah.
This is more a question for Chance, as far as, instead of waiting until this stuff is wore out, you know, putting on some kind of schedule to where they get 50,000 or 70,000, they still have market value, where we keep new fleet instead of wearing them out where they have no value?
Absolutely, Commissioner. And that's, I mean, this goes back to policies for, you know, administrations far, you know, before my time. But yes,
So we're trying to.
in a better
kinda
world, we would
get
try
that
to,
point?
we would try to exercise as much useful life as we can out of them, but still, you know, turn those back into a scenario where we can return those to the market and then purchase new ones that have lower miles. Yeah, instead of, you know, wearing those out until,
And
you
then
know,
start having
as the old
tons of
saying is, until the wheels
maintenance
fall off.
costs.
Yeah, we would.
Yeah, surprised me
Trying
how
to
many
figure out where
old,
that's at.
how many old Crown Vics we still have. I mean, that's,
Right. They
Amazing.
quit making those in 2011, and we still
Yeah.
got about, you know, 16, 17 of them out there. And we're catching up, and this is all thanks to the citizens that voted on the sales tax for public safety, that we're able to do this. And then, like the city manager said, then from this point on, as the years go on, a lot smaller amount of cars, but if we buy cars each year
4 or
to
5 a year is
replace the older ones, yeah, then we
Yeah.
can stay on top of it.
This has been an unusual time for us because we've passed the sales tax, and we've realized the reward and the receipts of that sales tax. We have the money to replace our cars. But unfortunately, because of manufacturing issues with
Can't get 'em.
the manufacturers, we cannot receive the vehicles that we've prepared ourselves to purchase. So we're in the best position to purchase cars we've ever been in, but we just can't, we can't do that, not because of fault of our own.
Those, the last SUVs we were purchasing were in the mid-30s, correct? I want to say that, I thought they were around 38 or something like that.
I want to say the Dodge Durango, I think we got into those around 33 maybe?
Yeah, and then with the add-ons, it was around, I think it was.
Back to 38
Yeah,
probably, so
that's
yes.
that's a significant savings
It's a
right
savings.
there. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And these are all state bid pricing.
right,
so.
right.
Buy five, get one free.
Yeah.
there you go.
Another question. How many vehicles are in your fleet?
Well, every officer, we went to the take-home program, you know, years ago, and what we found is the cars last a lot longer and they're taken better care of because the officers take pride in that vehicle because it's theirs and it's not driven 24/7 on all 3
Right.
shifts. So, and right now, you know, we're sitting at, I want to say, we've got 73 sworn officers right now.
Do we have a policy that they have to live in Pot County or in city limits of Shawnee? to
There
take
is a
those cars
policy
home?
of an 11-mile radius
Okay.
from the city of Shawnee,
All right,
yes.
thank you.
Yes.
And then also we get the bonus of those cars are seen in those neighborhoods too.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Which
Yeah,
makes it
and
a
it's
good
really
thing.
worked out well, especially with the 10-hour shifts, because
Mm-hmm.
as officers are coming on, a lot of times when something's going on with one shift, they can respond immediately to it, so it's really helped in that situation.
Anybody got anything else for the chief?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody got any other questions or any more discussion? We have a motion on.
I'll move to
item D.
approve item 2D.
All righty, thank you,
I'll
sir.
second.
All right, I think that was Mark. All righty, we have a motion and a second to approve item 2D. Let's call the question. And that passes, so we have some new police cars. Good deal. All righty, so now we're down to H. Anybody want to kick that off? Oh, Daniel, how about you?
No, I just wanted to make sure that we noted, I know Mr. Morris brought that up last time, and my understanding, I know his note, he has some notes on it. He may be correct. It's my understanding that Mr. Bonner had already been designated by the mayor, whether it was known or not, our previous administration.
Yeah, I'm
Mayor Finn.
happy to speak to that if,
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
At the time, Shawnee Ford was formed by the merger of the Shawnee Economic Development Foundation and the Shawnee Chamber of Commerce. Mayor Finley was serving as a regular board member of the Chamber of Commerce and then acceded to the role as a board member of Shawnee Forward. And at that point, prior to the first contract being initiated and pursuant to the old Shawnee Economic Development Foundation contract, he assumed the role as the city designee for Shawnee Forward. I went back and looked, and then, I think Mr. Morris and others who have pointed that out are correct, that procedurally it was not followed correctly as far as a ratification from this board. When Mayor Finley's term on that board expired, he asked if I would be willing to serve in that role. I agreed. There were conversations with the manager at the time, but again, it was not brought before this board, but Mayor Finley was still the mayor, and so it was his appointment to make. And we've operated under that since that time. What's interesting about it, and I think the reason that it slipped through the cracks just for information purposes, is it is rare that a community service contract in the city of Shawnee imposes a duty other than the payment of money upon the city commission. It is typically the other way around. And so I think that that is likely the reason that that occurred. That being said, this item not only ratifies that going backwards, it is treated as a present mayoral appointment for the remainder of this fiscal year, which is the term of the contract, at which point it is my strong recommendation that, Mr. Mayor, you take time to vet that issue. This is to get us in compliance contractually, but take time to vet that issue and then bring before this commission whomever you wish to have fill that seat, whether it be yourself or someone else. And then that can be voted on for the next fiscal year for Shawnee Forward's regular cycle. And so
Absolutely.
that was the purpose of this agenda item. And I think thanks are due to Mr. Morris for catching that oversight, and this will correct that if it is approved.
Very good. No, I think that's good advice. Anything else? None? We have a motion?
I move to approve.
Yep. All right. All right, Travis and Daniel. So we have a motion and a second to approve 2H. Now let's call the question. And that motion passes 7-0, so congratulations, you're our man. All righty, item 3, presentation by Animal Control Pet of the Week. I think I saw a dog out there earlier. How are you tonight?
Hi, how are you? Great. So, I'm Officer Spoon. This is our newest officer. His name is Officer Pixie. And our pet of the week is Macy. We think she's about 4, maybe 5 years old. She's a little scared right now, but she's very sweet, good with kids. She is a fence jumper, so she would need a 6-foot fence or privacy fence. Also coming up, we have an adoption event on Saturday. If you want to go ahead and explain that to them.
We're doing March Madness. It's going to be first 10 adoptions of spayed and neutered animals is sponsored with approved application. City tags must be purchased at time of adoption for $5 or $10. Animals can be microchipped there for $20 as well.
So where will that event be held?
That is going to be at the shelter
Okay.
at next to the Expo on 177 in Leo
It's going to be from 8 a.m. to noon.
8 a.m. till noon.
On March
on
6th.
this Saturday.
All right, very good.
And also currently at the shelter, we have 30 adoptable dogs, including 2 litters of puppies. 1 litter of puppies is not quite ready yet. They're only about 6 weeks old, so they'll need to stay with mom for the next couple of weeks.
Right,
But
So-
they will be coming up with the next couple of weeks.
30 dogs, no cats right now?
We have 1 cat and still 1 pig.
Is the pig adoptable?
It is not adoptable, no.
Pig is not adoptable.
No, it's not.
So what's going to
Not
happen with the
currently.
pig?
I'm sorry?
What will happen with the pig?
I'm not sure. It's still pending court, I believe.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to wait and see how that goes, and we'll take it from there.
Wow. Well, thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with the event. All righty. Item,
Know how hot it really is. It's a big deal.
I know. Pig needs like
It's
its
a hot
own
topic.
Facebook page or something. All righty, presentation and consideration to use CARES Act funds for Shawnee Forward to administer a small business relief program is item 4, and I bet, it says here Chance, but it looks more like Jeremy.
Jeremy's up.
He's up.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Davidson. I'm the Marketing and Events Director with Shawnee Forward. I served as the staff liaison to the Small Business Grant Relief Task Force. Together, this task force put in more than 100 hours working through applications from our small businesses. As you know, this task force recently awarded 33 applicants $105,000. These 33 were chosen from a total of 64 applicants to receive funding. Award amounts range from $2,000 to $5,000. As a task force, we work through the remaining applications to determine the amount of additional funding we believe necessary to give funding to the remaining 31 applicants. It was determined that $78,000 would be needed in order to fund the remaining 31 applications. It is the desire of the task force and Shawnee Forward to make awards to the remaining 31 applicants. We have obtained from the Potawatomi County Commissioners a pledge of $50,000 towards our $78,000 goal. If we are able to secure funding, secure the remaining $28,000 from the city of Shawnee. It is to that end that I am here on behalf of Shawnee Forward and the remaining small business applicants to ask for $28,000 for the Small Business Relief Grant Program so that we may match it with the $50,000 from the county and distribute it to our remaining applicants. Total sales loss represented by our applicants exceeded $4.2 million. The award recipient with the greatest year-to-year loss in revenue saw a decline of nearly $650,000. One service industry that has yet to receive an award had a year-to-year loss of more than $700,000 in revenue. It is our desire to complete the task put before us and help our small businesses. Your approval of this $28,000 would play a crucial role in helping each and every one of these businesses that the task force is seeking to make an award to. I want to thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Questions, gentlemen?
Question of Chance.
Yes, sir.
funds are available. We know we have the funds, this is appropriate use.
Yes, sir. I was going to make that comment. Yes, funds are available, so
So
thank you
this
for the
is-
question.
This is your recommendation.
Yes, sir.
So the folks that got money, they actually have cash in hand, that's all done?
Correct.
is my
Yeah, we
understanding.
have distributed all the checks at this point.
And this would, everybody that qualified in that, they filled out the forms right, did everything they're supposed to do, this would finish everybody out.
That would take us from top to bottom. We
Right.
qualified 64 applications, and so this would complete those 31 of the 64.
And we can do that for less, at least our part of it, less than $1,000 per.
So, question for clarification. There's been a lot of talk about the rubric and things like that. My understanding from your presentation and then what I've read on the program, that should we award the $28,000 tonight to be matched with the 50, every qualified applicant with a business plan deemed viable by the committee will be funded. Will get some kind of award.
That is correct.
And that would essentially make the rubric null and void. Because now no determination's been made by the rubric. They were made all by the business plans.
The business plans, and then, I mean, I would say that the rubric, like, the business plan came in through the rubric. So the rubric were the questions that they completed in order for us to be able to qualify the applications.
Right.
So,
Did it affect the amount between 0 and 5,000?
Right.
Is that what you were?
That's essentially my question.
yeah. Yeah, the task force made the determination on amount based on probably looking at the need and the business plan at hand.
Not on the score. The score just qualified them.
The score qualified them, and I would say that it also ranks them, right? So if we start at the top and go to the bottom,
Okay.
that's the way that we approach that. So whoever had the highest score, that was the first business that we did our determination on.
But not on that didn't really play into the amount.
Right,
that
the
they were
amount
given.
was determined
Based
as
on
looking
need.
at the business plan.
So this would award every qualified.
Correct.
Whether they're a Shawnee Forward member or not. So
Correct.
That part of it.
Could we ask Tecumseh for any amount?
We have not at this point.
Here's the question, Dan, do we want, I mean, are there any in that there are Tecumseh businesses of the 31?
I believe there may be one in there. I would have to go back. I didn't bring that data with me. Our, that would be an opportunity. Our goal at this point is to secure all the funding.
I mean, I'd do it, get it over with, but I think Tecumseh, I mean, you guys still need to ask Tecumseh to,
Well, and then the money from the county also, I mean, to come.
Yes.
yeah,
Right, right.
true.
Good point.
So 50 from the county,
28 from us.
28 from us, or if there was 25 from us with the possibility of 3 from Tecumseh, just to keep the percentage as it was to begin with, is just a thought.
Well, I think, like Rob said, the county's
County.
pitching in for everywhere, so it's, at this point, I don't think it's
We would run the risk that Tecumseh says no, and we're not 50,000 for the
I mean, if
county.
they had 7 Tecumseh businesses, I'd say, maybe they need
Yeah.
me, but if there's only one, I don't have a problem with 28.
Any other questions? Good, Benny?
He's quiet over there.
He is quiet over there.
I'll make a motion if you're ready.
Hey, go for it.
I make a motion that we approve the 28,000.
I'll second.
Ready? Let's see. So we have a motion and a second for approval. So let's call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All righty, item 5. Let's see, acknowledgement and ratification of the proclamation declaring an emergency within the city limits and such additional territory as may be described herein, authorizing the actions of the city manager pursuant to state laws in the municipal code of the city of Shawnee. And I see Brad.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I'll speak first. This is to ratify the proclamation of emergency that was established by the mayor on February 16th in regards to the most recent winter storm. This was done after the governor declared a state of emergency on the 12th, and then it was followed up with President Biden's. He also declared this as a state of emergency and activated FEMA. So we will be able to recover some of our cost for response to the storm from FEMA up to 75%. And so we don't know what those costs are at this point. We're still tallying those with the accounting department. However, I've asked Brad to give just a utility update because so many of our utility users were affected by the storm. So the people can understand the status of our systems today compared to the status just a couple weeks ago.
Okay, very good.
So crews responded to at least 126 emergency shutoffs. That's for busted pipes on houses and businesses. We received over 70 no water or low pressure calls, and staff repaired 41 main breaks during a week time, 8 days. Our yearly average is 80, so they essentially did 6 months of work in 8 days. During that time, our plant ran at or near capacity. 7.8 million gallons of water a day. Our average flow for this time of year is between 3 and 3.5. As of the 24th, our plant is 100% operational. Flow is returned back closer to normal, just slightly higher than average. That's all I've got.
Okay, well, don't run away. I'm sure maybe some guys got questions, or anybody got questions, or maybe for Brad?
I know that we can't anticipate the worst storm in the history of the world happening. And so that, but are there things that we learned from this that can help us to possibly keep the damage from events like this to a minimum in the future?
So I learned hydraulic lines can freeze and snap. We were good up to the point of our suppliers were frozen in Houston. That's what caused the issues with the water plant. We are in the, very soon we'll be bidding out our new water plant. We've already been in contact with increased storage, even above and beyond what we have. The problem we ran into is we had product on hand. We just ran 3 times our average right at 3 times for such a sustained period that everything, even though we had planned, we couldn't sustain that.
We didn't expect to run your capacity for, a prolonged period of time, over a week, this time of year. So that we went through all of our alum, which is the particular material that we became low on. And it was, we received an emergency shipment, I think, when we notified the public that we were having issues with the plant. We received fortunately, an emergency shipment on Saturday late, early Sunday, and we were able to get that installed into our plant, and to where we were starting to dose our treated water.
Right.
But, so fortunately, our plant only ran a few hours that were over our technical limits. But it was just, we got very lucky that we were able to receive the supply shipment when we did.
Right.
But however, during the winter storm, it was very
not a normal storm for here.
difficult.
No.
That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we did find some some equipment that works better in Arctic temperatures versus what we normally use. So we've already taken steps to acquire that in case something, hopefully it doesn't, but in case something like this does occur again, we'll be even better prepared than what we were.
Anybody got any other questions?
I do.
Go ahead, Bob.
Do I understand that now when we do new road construction, we're no longer putting water and sewer lines under the road?
That is correct, sir.
That is correct.
That is
Yeah.
correct. And we're looking at different material options that may even better protect us from this issue. That was the thing with a lot of these main breaks that occurred where they were very shallow.
Right.
1.5 feet, 2 feet deep under the road. Things that have been installed 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
So now your construction standards are different, and we're looking at better material.
Any other questions?
Not really a question, but this is probably as good a time as any to say thank you to
Absolutely.
you, your crew, everything that you guys did throughout that. That was some brutal working conditions, and 6 months of work in 8 days under those conditions is I want to commend you and everybody that was out there.
Did an amazing job, you really did. It's no fun working out in the cold like that. I was a telephone repairman back in the 80s when we had a cold snap like that, and being up on an icy pole in the dark is no fun. So I kind of know what you guys went through, but to be out there working on a broken water line down in a muddy pit and being soaking wet and it's below zero, I mean, I can't say enough for what your folks did.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Alrighty. So, let's see. Well, I guess we need to vote on the acknowledgement, don't we? Alrighty, so do we have a motion?
Motion to
Acknowledge the.
To acknowledge.
Yes, just to acknowledge the
emergency declaration.
the declaration of
Proclamation.
sign. Yes, sir.
I'll second.
All right, so Bob and Travis. All right, so we have a motion and a second to acknowledge that, so we can call the question. And motion passes 7-0. All righty, item 6, consideration of agreement with South Central Industries, Inc. for trash removal services at 23 municipal park locations and janitorial services at 3 municipal park locations. So I think Brad's up again.
Yes, sir. So this is a renewal of the previous contract that we signed last year where South Central took over our trash, picked up our parks. That ran from April to October. This current contract would expand that from March 1 to November 30th. And also addresses janitorial needs at the restrooms at Boy Scout, Kid Space, and Dean Wygant parks.
Question. Are these the same parks as they were on last year's?
Yes, sir. The only change is the having South Central maintain the restroom facilities at those 3, and then extend that time frame.
Okay, well, you know a question I'm going to ask. Isaac Walton Park is obviously not on the list. Can you tell me why and if we've got... And
So
for
we-
those of you that don't know, that's in my ward, there's Shawnee Lake, and I'm concerned.
So we have added, or will add, the right-of-way cleanup. South Central also maintains right-of-ways for us. The right-of-way from Lake Road into that entrance, that has been added.
Okay.
We explored the option of having South Central maintain Isaac Walton and Glen Collins and other lake areas. At this time, we chose to keep that in-house and utilize our staff for that.
All right. You knew I'd ask that question.
Yes, sir.
questions? Oh, the one thing I was asked was like comparing what it costs to do it this way versus if we kept it in-house. So this is, I would guess, a savings, or we wouldn't probably.
Yes, sir, it is a savings.
It is a significant savings. It also, this allows for continuity, so I don't have a crew that gets pulled off or gets pulled away for some sort of emergency.
Right.
Parks guys also repaired main breaks a couple weeks ago. But this is, it keeps a schedule, make sure everything is maintained and restrooms are well stocked and cleaned and
Okay. Good. Any other questions?
2 days a week, cleaning restrooms, especially in some of those high-traffic areas, is something that I think is very necessary. And as a father of kids who like to play in our parks and enjoy those, having a clean restroom facility is really important. And I think that that's money well spent.
So, one question I have is Monday through Friday, and probably the busiest days are Saturday, Sunday. So, my take would be weekends, nothing's getting done.
so this Monday through Friday, so our large parks, unofficially our big four is what staff refers to them as, Boy Scout, Kid Space, Wygant, and Woodland. Those are hit daily, Monday through Friday. The rest of these parks, essentially 5 through 23 on that list is twice. They're our smaller parks, no restroom facilities. They pick up trash, remove trash from those twice a week, typically Tuesday and Thursday.
So do we have problems with stuff overflowing on weekends and cans totally
Not-
full? And I
not-
guess I'm going to, why don't we do Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and don't do Tuesday, Wednesday?
I'm not aware that we have any issues with
I
overflowing.
haven't heard, I'm
We-
just,
it-
if more people are gonna be there,
Yes,
more
sir.
have to deep cleaning.
If we do, we have not received those complaints.
This was pretty successful last year.
Okay.
And we,
The garbage cleanup, yeah.
yes, and we do still have people on call. We do have staff on call that can respond to issues as they come up. And South Central, I believe they're willing to work with us and be flexible with schedule if we do need to adjust as we move forward.
I'll make a motion.
All righty.
I'd like
Yes,
to
sir.
approve the agreement with SCI.
I'll second.
All righty. And Travis, okay. We have a motion then and a second to approve item 7 then, so. Let's call the question.
Item 6.
I'm sorry.
It's item 6, I believe, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, you're right. It is. Thank you, sir. And that passes 7-0. Now we get to 7. Consideration of a contract with CEC Corporation for professional design services regarding 45th Street Transportation Project. And Seth is up. How are you, sir?
Yeah, good. And afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. This is a pretty exciting item. It's following up on an item from January when I asked for permission to begin negotiations with CEC. So this is coming back before you guys. So with coordination from staff, CEC has put together a draft contract. The amount is $227,232. And the services included within that contract include basically the preliminary engineering design. So scope of that is traffic analysis and counts all along the 45th Street corridor from Leo to Bryan. It includes also traffic counts at the intersection of MacArthur and Leo. And then there are recommendations in a report format for widening 45th based off of that traffic analysis. And then it also includes recommendations for pedestrian facilities, a complete topographic survey and right-of-way analysis, as well as initial roadway coordination and some initial exhibits for the railroad, drainage analysis for the 6 drainage crossings that we have in FEMA floodplains, and then obviously the anticipated construction phasing and recommended improvements. So also I mentioned included within the scope is a virtual public meeting. So after we have a conceptual layout and a conceptual design, there will be a forum that we can share the link of on the city Facebook page or on the city website that allows people to provide feedback for stuff that they'd like to see or impacts that they'd like to be noted and stuff like that. So that is included within this scope. And then also, just to be clear, this contract would essentially be step one. And step two would be the final construction documents, so, which is not included in this contract scope. So there will be a future amendment or additional contract for the final design effort. But with that, I would open it up to any questions that you guys might have.
Carrie, the traffic counts at the intersection of MacArthur and Leo.
Yeah, yes, sir. So that really generated from Traffic Commission. I mean, it started with Traffic Commission. So with the new school that's coming in just west of Kickapoo, north of 45th Street, there was a concern that there was going to be, and the congestion on Kickapoo, there was a concern that there was going to be an increase in traffic at that MacArthur intersection. And so I spoke with the design consultant about including it within this scope since they're going to have traffic counts all along the 45th corridor. The price to get a traffic count at that intersection was drastically lower than if we went out and had them do that at an independent time because they're already in the area, they already have. So this is essentially us obtaining some information about that and projecting that intersection with the school information and just giving us some data that we can use if we feel like we want to do something at that intersection in the future.
So they can kind of estimate on
Yeah,
occupancy of the school and
right.
what's going to go,
Right.
what's already going through there and what they.
Yes.
I'm sure they will take this into consideration, but it's about anywhere from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, depending on what part of town you're in. If you're stuck in a school zone, and you're trying to get someplace in a hurry, it can be quite frustrating.
Right.
And I know that's a pretty big inlet for a lot of people in and out, and thinking through the design for, you know, that road, including the possibility of a school being stuck there in the future. Like I said, I'm sure they're thinking for that, but I just want to make sure that that's not something that gets overlooked.
Yep.
But then also, I'm really excited to hear the public meeting, that hopefully that we will be able to get as many individuals that live in that area or use that to speak to what they believe that would help them and make their world a better world, instead of sometimes it seems like those come a little bit too late after we've already, you know, made big decisions. So hopefully individuals will have the opportunity to speak as much as they can beforehand.
What's the length of time you think?
For just the engineering report, so, good question. So if we give notice to proceed tomorrow, so if it passes tonight and we give notice to proceed tomorrow, we can expect the report back sometime at the end of May, early June, so not too far out.
What's the estimated time between the end of May report and construction documents?
Well, so obviously we would go to final design first, and they would go all the way through design, and then we would have utility relocation and any necessary right-of-way acquisition that we may have. So it's kind of hard to say an exact time because, as you know, that right-of-way acquisition process can really drag out, or it can be super quick depending on kind of what the final design dictates. So yeah, but as Chance said, years. Yeah.
It'll be a couple of years anyway, won't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Has there been any thought or consideration? We've approved a major housing addition on 45th
Yes, sir.
at the railroad track.
Yes, sir. Cardinal.
That's the only automobile crossing area north of Independence Street. So has there been any consideration about maybe making that a quiet zone where train won't be going through there at 2 o'clock in the morning, blowing their horn as they cross 45th Street?
It's not something that I've discussed.
I think we need to consider that.
Any other questions? No? Good. Anybody want to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Mark, thank you. All righty, so we have a motion and a second to approve item 7. So we will call the question. And it passes 7-0. Thank you very much, Seth. Item 8, consideration of a request for on-street parking on the proposed Redbird Road. And we have Seth again.
Yes, sir. So this is actually part of the development that Mr. Salter was just mentioning, Cardinal Point there off 45th Street west of the train tracks. And you've probably noticed the construction activity there. So the new street that's coming north off 45th there is called Redbird Road. And that first phase of Cardinal Point includes 41 residential lots and 2 commercial lots. So as part of those commercial lots, the road actually splits those 2 commercial lots, and the developer has requested that they be granted some public on-street parking there. So they've asked for 24 spaces, and this item was heard at Traffic Commission on January 26th and was approved with conditions outlined by staff, and those conditions were that Redbird Road should not have a speed limit exceeding 25 miles an hour. The 24 proposed parking spaces shall be public parking spaces not reserved for specific businesses or residential units. And the parking shall be within a permanent easement or city right-of-way. And with that, I would accept any questions that you guys have.
I gather this is your recommendation is to...
Yes, yes, sir. Yeah, staff's recommendation is to approve with the conditions.
I'll make a motion we approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second to approve item 8. Let's call the question. And item passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to item 9, consideration of requirements of public improvements for the proposed Cedar Ridge addition, and it sets up again.
Yes, sir. So this one, again, I think is something that you guys are all very aware of. This is the residential subdivision, proposed residential subdivision that off of 39th Street, just east of Harrison Street. So this development has been before you a couple of times now with the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezone. And I actually think the next item tonight is the preliminary plat on this same property. So Cedar Ridge is a 59-lot, single-family residential subdivision. And in the past discussions before you all, and then throughout the planning process, the city received some signed petitions in regards to 39th Street and its condition. And so with that in mind, consideration of the required public improvements for 39th Street was brought before Traffic Commission on January 26th. And staff's recommendation to Traffic Commission was to require the widening of 39th Street and bringing it up to city standard from Harrison east of the easternmost entrance point of the residential property. Traffic Commission actually made a separate recommendation, which was to require the developer to widen and improve 39th Street up to city standards in the frontage of the subdivision, but not all the way to Harrison, so just the 411 feet of the frontage property. So staff's recommendation tonight to you guys is just to follow the recommendation outlined by the Traffic Commission, which again is to require the developer to widen 39th Street for the length of the subdivision's frontage. So with that, I'd open up to any questions that you guys have.
So no road improvement between Harrison And
Yeah, so there would be a gap between, if the traffic commission recommendation is followed, there would be a gap from Harrison to basically the end of that electrical substation. And then it would be improved for the length of the frontage of that property.
So that part would fall on the city then,
Yeah,
if we choose
yes,
to
sir.
do that later on.
How many feet is that?
The frontage was 411, and I believe it was approximately, and it's approximate, but I think it's like 1,100 feet.
I was gonna say something like 1,000, yeah.
Do we have plans to carry through with the improvements?
Currently, no.
Yeah, Travis, no, sir. We have plans for roadway improvements, and that, I mean, that's somewhere on the list, but not in our near term.
So why was the recommendation changed from the original,
Yeah.
from Harrison?
I think it's a fair question, and I think my recommendation to Traffic Commission is still valid, and it's not that I'm backing away from it. I felt like there was a fair and lengthy discussion during Traffic Commission. I felt like they really weighed the issues of the project, and they returned a unanimous recommendation that was to only require it for the frontage. And, as you know, Traffic Commission is independent from my office or anywhere else, and I just felt like their recommendation should carry a little bit of weight and have influence on what's decided tonight. And then also, I feel like this is just a step in the right direction. We are requiring the developer to have some skin in the game and pay for some public improvement. So no, it's not all the way to Harrison Street, but it's a step in the right direction. So that's why I moved forward with the Traffic Commission recommendation.
Am I mistaken that they had agreed to go all the way to Harrison?
No, sir, they did not. They did not
They
want
did
to do
not?
that. Yeah,
Okay.
so they were in opposition of going all the way to Harrison. I think that would be a fair statement.
I think they had mentioned a shared, sorry.
Yes.
That's right, when they were here, they did. I thought that, after the fact, though, I thought they had agreed informally to do that. You're saying that's not correct?
That's not correct. Yes, sir.
So how long out before we could finish it? I mean, my deal is, why would you do 400 foot of the street and the other
Right.
2,500 foot? I mean, it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't,
Yeah.
I mean,
Mr. Commissioner, we'll have to weigh that against our other budgetary needs as we move into the next year's budget cycle, just to weigh the costs of other projects we have ongoing, to see when we can actually
so
see those enhancements on the city's board.
is there a way to have them pay their cost up front and put it in escrow for that when it does? I mean, to me, to halfway do it doesn't make sense. I mean, I don't know if we need to do it all at one time, otherwise it's gonna look like part of it was done now,
Yeah, I
part
mean,
of it was done on both ends of it.
My suggestion with that is, as construction costs inflate, I mean, will that cost they pay in actually pay for the improvements at that point when it comes to, when we can actually do the project? So,
If, I would just say, if this project is completed and the requirement for the individuals traveling that road needed the road to be improved, and it hasn't been done, is that going to create problems as far as the number of people traveling on that road if it's only a 400 feet stretch of improvements versus the...
I mean, I think the simple answer is probably yes. I mean, it's not going to get any better, right? So,
Right.
I mean, I think, staff's effort was really to play the middle. I mean, it's, do you make a requirement that essentially kills the project, or do you,
Right.
do you know what I'm saying? So
No, absolutely.
it's kind of a fine line there, and like I said, I think my initial recommendation to Traffic Commission is not invalid. It was just there was a long discussion there, as you guys are having tonight, and ultimately it's you guys' decision. If you guys want to make the recommendation that they're required to do the entire street, that is your right. Likewise, you could move Traffic Commissions forward, or make a separate motion altogether. So ultimately, that is you guys' decision.
Do we know what the developer's timeline is?
Timeline?
Yes, sir.
It's as soon, really, I think, as they can get permitted.
Well, I'm just asking, when are we likely to see them do those
impact.
street improvements? which kind of forces our hand maybe to do something down the road, or would more likely compel us to maybe do something down the road, but really when we're weighing out projects. But
Certainly.
Well, it kind of,
Totally cut that street off.
yeah, well, it kind of bothers me that we have required developers over the last many years to improve the street, but we're not requiring them to do it. And we've also allowed smaller lots in the subdivision than what normally is required. Have they gone back to the?
Yeah.
Okay.
this isn't the one we shaved like a foot off, right?
No.
Or there was one?
No.
No, so this wasn't that one, so they're just back to normal size.
I was guessing the majority of traffic's gonna come from the south. That's the way I'd go.
Are you talking about from Northridge, or are you talking about?
Yeah, because that's a bigger road but it's kind of pieced together also. So one of our option would be to prioritize that if we choose to.
That's right.
Right.
We could choose to prioritize.
How heavily is that travel? Have we ever done a traffic count on
We don't have a traffic count on 39th Street.
Not right now, but
We-
we're adding, how many homes up there was it?
It was,
I was gonna
50.
say 60 something, right?
it? So that whole addition probably is dumping down through there too.
Right.
Most of them going to pump to the light, they'll turn in there, so I'm sure it's heavier than you think it is.
Everybody from Northridge uses 39th to come out
Do they?
on the north side of Northridge.
But you miss the light.
Yeah, that's 59 lots, just saying.
59. So, I mean, when we get 59 houses built there,
And
obviously.
then we do
that's-
that, we need a light there to get the
Right.
traffic going off of it, so.
I have a question, I think it's similar following Commissioner Salter. Maybe it's for Chancellor Seth, maybe it's for Joe. Do we lock ourselves in with precedent if we only require in front of development, new development?
That's probably a Joe question.
I think there's always a risk with that, but I also think that you have to address the fact that each and every one of these situations is going to be very fact specific. We have facts here that aren't going to present ever again. We have previous situations that I think Commissioner Salter has referenced that are a little bit different than what we've done here. So there's not going to be a one size fits all. That's why we have a traffic commission. That's why we have qualified staff to look at these and make these recommendations. And that's why you guys get paid the big bucks to make the decisions.
I don't know, I mean, if you require to do it on the Harrison, the cost is, I mean, it'll never develop.
They've stated that the project would not go forward if that was their requirement.
80 acre plot, you kind of see it, but I guess the question being, for me, is if they paid into, I mean, it's kind of like the sidewalk deal, you know, a sidewalk to nowhere does nobody any good. So do we set up some kind of funding to where you're paying into the street fund and we're gonna use it to our discretion? Instead of doing just halfway that road, I think it's smarter than building 400 foot of road and then us getting 5 years down the road, it's just, I mean, it's almost an eyesore. It's like, why is this nice and the rest of them on both ends not?
Yeah, and to your point, that played a little bit into my mind as far as why I wanted to move forward with just the traffic commission recommendation versus my initial recommendation is I got to thinking about the width of the street. And the tightest section in there is really against Harrison, you know, as the drainage channels kind of drop off there between vans. And to redo that road and to do it properly, there might necessitate a little bit of right-of-way acquisition, and a private developer can't do that. And so that was another fact, that it was just, to do it right, I don't know, it would be difficult for them.
So what are we doing on the sidewalks now? Are they paying into the fund?
A fee in lieu of sidewalk, is that what you're?
You can, yeah, but we prefer the sidewalks.
Can we do that on the streets?
I don't think there's any code that specifies that.
We don't have a current mechanism, Commissioner, but it's one that can be easily created.
Yeah.
I mean, my thought process on it is, if we're gonna do the street, we need to do it all, otherwise, I mean, if the developer wants to pay into a fund for what that is, and then I mean, because we may look at it, and go, we'd rather repair a street somewhere else that's got more traffic on, it's got more problems. I mean, what,
Yeah.
you're the engineer, not me.
I'm not opposed to that idea at all. I just, it's not something that had been brought up, you know what I mean?
I would think, though, that developer is not gonna want, if they're gonna develop this nice addition, they're sure not gonna wanna have that road that's there now, what goes into their addition and comes out. I mean, I would think that would be a real detriment to being able to sell those lots.
Well, then you ought to have to pay the fund to Harrison. I mean, and which is cost prohibitive, but I just, you know, to me, it doesn't make sense to do 400 foot of it and then not finish it. And that's going back to the traffic count. It'd be interesting to see what the traffic count is on that.
Yeah. The only thing that we really have on it is the pavement analysis, which it doesn't consider traffic volume, it's just the condition of the pavement.
Currently, is that a private?
No, that's a public street, it's 30 minutes.
You alluded to acquiring.
No, it's over by man.
Oh.
If it was a private bunch trying to do that, it'd be hard.
Just to solve drainage.
Yeah.
So if we move forward with the traffic commission's recommendation, looking at 59 lots, by the time it goes through the process, sells most of the lots out, probably gives us a couple, maybe 3 years before it's.
So I would add a little bit to that, because you're gonna have a little bit of time for the construction of the subdivision, so the streets, water, sewer, et cetera. And then you would have a little bit of time for residential construction of the actual property. So yes would be the answer, and it would probably be, I don't want to put a timeline on it, because until it's completely full, I don't know, but it would be years.
To Commissioner Sehorn's point, we don't want it to get too segmented, but we would have a little bit of time to prioritize it, make sure we have the money, and still have a quality road by the time the subdivision finishes.
I think that it would be prudent to, if we were gonna do part of it, do it at the same time versus trying to tie into, no matter who does it, whatever new construction, there's gonna be a significant gap or difference between tying two roads together. We're always gonna be an area where things might fail too, anytime you do stuff like that.
What I fear, and I wanted to see it go all the way through, but what I fear, one, they may decide not to do the project, or two, it's gonna put us in a position to have to pretty well commit in next year's budget to have the funds for doing this road. If we're gonna do it, as you suggested, all at once, if it's gonna benefit that development, I'm not opposed to saying that's a priority project, but I would fear if we don't, we're either gonna look at that, or they're gonna look at pulling the project, and I'd hate to see the project pulled. They've done a lot of work, and I would think it's gonna be a great asset to that area. So I'm with you. I mean, I'm concerned too. I share everyone's concern, but I also have concern for the project moving forward. And
Do we have any ballpark on what the 700 feet the city would have to do?
So no, I mean,
Assuming no acquisitions, which I know.
right. I mean, the initial estimate, I think, for the entire stretch from Harrison to the east, of the easternmost entrance was about $350,000. So you could knock a little bit off of that, because assuming they did their frontage, it would be less than that. So I think you could probably say 275, 250 plus or minus 25, 30.
If we need to reprioritize for a budget because this development comes to fruition and there's going to be a significant impact, we can work through this budget cycle. Now, that was to my point earlier. Yeah, if we need to reprioritize and realign our street work, we can certainly.
We're getting ready to go through that cycle right now anyway.
Yeah.
And a couple $100,000 is not insignificant.
No.
It's not
As far as our part, it's
Yeah, right.
200,000?
Yeah. It's not a couple million.
I mean, like I say, how many feet is it?
It would be
700 feet.
yeah, roughly 1,000 feet.
That would be our portion.
Our part. Is 1,100 feet total? Okay, so it would be approximately 750 feet would be our part.
So stormwater drain could
So everything currently drains
It's gonna
in.
go to Harrison?
Yeah, everything currently drains in ditches to Harrison and then to the north.
I think there's a big ditch there,
Yes.
isn't there?
Yeah,
big bar
yeah,
ditches.
it's-
That's why I was talking about that to do it right, you would probably have to do some storm sewer and to, fix the drainage problems.
Right. Cause that probably needs to be wider there with the turn lane too.
Yes, sir.
Probably so.
I mean, I guess my question is what kind of cost is it to the city?
I think
So
that was
who-
what
who's gonna
Seth was
finish it
referring to.
From there to where it turns back on whatever that side road is, North Ridge or whatever it is.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it would be outside of their frontage area, so we would either have to do that at the same time.
Which
as-
many feet is that? I mean, that's the,
That would be the remaining,
so it's 700 foot from there to Harrison, but
Mhm.
how many feet back to the?
not very,
east exit?
not very many. The edge of their frontage property is almost at the intersection.
Is it?
Yeah.
See, it's really close.
So we may have to redo the intersection, but it wouldn't
It's really
be,
close.
it wouldn't be a linear.
Yeah, I thought it was there.
It's right there, just about, yeah.
Where is it?
Oh, I think that's the other project. isn't it?
Oh, that's the other one?
Yeah, I think that's the one we talked about a little bit ago,
Yeah.
the shape of it. Should be the next item. Yeah. There's a photograph there. Here we go.
Well, it doesn't show.
You got it. There you go. And then, there you go. He's got photographs.
Oh. On the detail, it cuts it off right there, so it
Yeah.
doesn't show the
So it
connection.
lines up with it.
Right, exactly, too.
Yeah, so it's
Pretty darn close.
and then, huh. So they're not gonna do it to the substation, even though the ditch is back there, so they're just doing the. I mean, I think it's probably Seth's call, but whatever. I think we ought to build the whole thing if we're gonna do it at the same time.
Any other questions for Seth? Benny, you good? Okay. Go past anybody.
So we'll have the option, if approved as presented from traffic, then you can come back to us with engineering in the costs of what our portion
Our
would be.
portion, yeah. Yeah, and staff can work out, the budgetary issues.
Once we see them start and
Yeah.
get
And-
their interior work started, and that's gonna come to fruition.
So, are we gonna be able to do our own engineering on this, or do we have to?
That's a question for this guy.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, are we gonna do it in-house?
I'm capable of doing it in-house. The question would be whether, if that's if that's the way we wanted to dictate staff's time, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, the capability is there.
Okay.
So if we approve item 9 tonight, that doesn't prohibit, this decision doesn't have to be made, is that correct? And it doesn't hold up the project? Or if we, are we gonna have to make a decision here on item 9 that the road, we won't accept the 400 feet? Can we approve this item and to be determined?
We certainly could. I think the practical consideration, Commissioner, is on the developer and whether or not they would be prepared to proceed without having that certainty of cost.
It sounds like we're kind of in concern up here that it might be difficult to approve this tonight. And my fear, if we don't approve this tonight, is delaying what we've
Yeah.
worked very hard to do.
I think it's probably in the developer's best interest to certainly come to some sort of approval tonight. You know, as staff has stated, the recommendation would be to recommend with the planning commission, or excuse me, the traffic commission, for the developer's frontage. And staff, for the other portion of the roadway, we can certainly work through the procedure for improving the remainder of the roadway. We can handle that on staff side. So I think that could alleviate a lot of the concerns that have been expressed this evening.
But I'd like to make a motion when you're ready, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, go right ahead, sir.
I make a motion that we approve item 9 for the consideration of the requirements as recommended by staff.
All righty, thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Mark? All righty. We have motion and a second after a lot of good discussion on item 9, so let's call the question. And item passes 7-0. Thank you guys very much for all that discussion. Item 10, case number PL 05-21, consideration and approval of a preliminary plat for Cedar Ridge Addition, a 3.49 acre tract located approximately 1,100 feet east of Harrison Avenue, located on the north side of East 39th Street. Applicant David Frey. And
Back to
Rebecca's
Cedar
up to see
Ridge.
us.
Okay, so this came before Planning Commission after Traffic Commission, so we timed those to both be on the same agenda in front of you all, which they are tonight. And there's still 15 conditions that need to be met to meet our code and subdivision regulations. This is our 4th version of the preliminary plat that we've had submitted and have reviewed. I'll briefly go through those criteria, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. Number 1, signed agreement of the 25-foot off-site drainage easement for the northwest corner of the proposed plat. They have proposed to have drainage that pours off of the property. However, we have no agreement with that adjacent property owner that says that they've agreed to that. So that either needs to be revised to be contained within the site, or we need to have that agreement. Number 2, zoning under developer's information is still A1. It needs to be updated to R1, single family residential, as was recommended for approval and final approval from you guys. Number 3, 13 of the 59 lots do not meet minimum dimensional R1 standards. All lots will need to meet minimum R1 dimensional standards. If you guys remember when this was first before you as a planned unit development, there were 59 lots. They were smaller than R1, so there's just no way possible they can keep 59 lots and meet R1 standards for all of those. Number 4, revisions and dates need to be added. Again, we've worked with the engineer on this project and gone through 4 different revisions. Number 5, the preliminary plat note indicates variances being requested. The city has received no applications for said variances. The language needs to be stricken, or an application needs to be filed for zoning board of adjustment. 6, lots need to be divided out into appropriate blocks, labeled and renumbered. Subdivision regulations 40.2.5. 7, rectangles on lots should be removed. The work is very jumbled and it's very hard to read and review. These, I guess, are supposed to represent the footprint of homes. They serve no purpose on the plat. Number 8, ensure lot frontages are legible and applied to each lot. 9, no more than 300-foot separation of fire hydrants for fire protection, subdivision regulation 40.2.9. We need to make sure every lot has adequate protection and access to fire hydrant. 10, sidewalks meeting ADA minimum standards shall be noted on the plat for the 411 feet of frontage on East 39th. Those are not currently there on this version. 11, topography shall be removed from the final plat. Again, should be a separate sheet, something for engineering to review. really jumbles with what should be reviewed and approved by you guys. 12, block numbers shall be circled. Lot numbers shall be discernible from other dimensions and characters. 13, private park and detention area shall be renamed common area. 14, show and calculate the drainage areas for each flume, location, and size and the flume accordingly. 15, verify acreage. 2 separate lots are displayed for the subdivision, a 13.37 and a 0.98 acre lot. However, the acreage total on the plat is 13.49 acres. So with those 15 conditions, staff would recommend conditional approval. And what that means is we would ask that the engineer satisfy these items for the final plat submittal. So we hope to present you guys a much cleaner version for the final plat, and that will be in final condition and ready for acceptance. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have regarding those conditions.
I'm sure the developer's been given this list.
Yes,
as
we
well.
have been in constant communication with the engineer, the developer, as well as the attorney.
This may be the old planner coming out of me, or planning commission member coming out of me. That's way too many conditions. These should have been taken care of before it got to city commission.
I agree. I agree.
Commissioner Salter, I hear you, the two old planning guys, like, these aren't conditions, these are corrections.
Yeah.
And this is on the job of the engineer. In my opinion, this needs to come much cleaner.
We try to work with people when they're on an expedited timeline to help them satisfy what they've projected as their timeline. However, I would agree with Commissioner Matthews, and there are quite a few items here before you today that need correction.
If this is the fourth submittal, though, there's been plenty of opportunity.
I mean, on his side, I bet he just didn't want to spend any money until he thought he could do the road. I mean, it's kind of a clash between the developer and he doesn't want to spend any more money on it if he can't. And so you kind of understand it, guys. There's a lot of...
Well, if they've submitted it 4 times, they're spending money. I'm probably just being grumpy.
I would, if I were Rebecca, I'd be grumpy too.
I'm going to say you
It's like
didn't
you
have
ask
to
and
review
ask
it
and
4
ask.
times.
I mean, some of it's really elementary.
Do you have a deadline on when these corrections need to be made?
So if they want to make planning commission agenda, that application has to be submitted 30 days prior to the meeting date they wish to be on. With that said, there can be corrections that need to be made. We try to get those reviewed within 1 business week and then get those comments back so they can address them and still have, the 3 weeks or ample time to correct it before I assemble the packets. So we don't have right now any procedure or fee for re-reviews or any policy on that. Like if you don't have it in 3 revisions, you have to resubmit, or there's something. We don't have anything like that. So it's just kind of been a ping pong match.
Did I hear you recommend that we do a conditional, if we do anything, that we do it conditional tonight?
With
Yes,
those
sir.
15.
And
I would like to see them have a much more finished product for the final plat submittal. So I'm hoping that they understand we're trying to work with them and keep them on their timeline. But these are a lot of outstanding items. So I would only recommend approval with them satisfying the 15 commissions as noted. But I would like to keep them moving as far as their timeline and their project.
thank you.
Will this return to planning first before it comes back to us to make sure that they've completed these 15?
Yes, it will.
I move we approve with the conditions.
All right?
I'll second.
Thank you, Rebecca. All righty, we've got a motion and a second on item 10, so we'll call the question. All righty, motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Item 11, consideration and approval of an amendment to the future land use map of the 2040 comprehensive plan to reallocate 15 acres of low-density residential to high-density residential. And Rebecca's up again.
And this dovetails from our last item. When they applied for the comprehensive plan amendment back in December, we had talked about not losing the multifamily or the high-density residential, as the acreage was very limited. For low-density residential on the future use map, which is before you, we have over 5,800 acres. For the high-density multifamily, we have just 106 acres. So we didn't want to lose the 13 to 15-ish acres from that calculation. This is open for discussion. Let me say, as the future land use map, which is on page 89 of our 2040 plan, as this was crafted, it projected with future projects in mind what appropriate uses would be for the area. It does not, however, take over the right for someone to use their property as they're currently using it today in the zoning classification that it is. The light yellow that you see on the map, that's going to be the low density residential. So we took this piece off of 39th Street, and the reasoning behind the recommendation, which is going to be a 15-acre piece off the southeast corner of 45th and Leo. Reasoning behind that is we are currently going to expand 45th Street. So it's going to move a lot more people. Shawnee Public Schools, that dark blue there that you see on the north side, they're building a new school. So there's going to be a need for housing in that area. We're seeing a lot of growth and momentum just kind of in that corridor. So like I said, it is open to discussion if there is an area that you feel is better suited or more appropriate. It does not impede the property owner's right to use their property as they're using it today. It does not change their current zoning. They could go their entire lifetime and never change their zoning, but because of the growth and the projects that are on the radar at this time, we really think that area is appropriate.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Have the property owners expressed an opinion on that area?
No. So typically, on the future land use map, it would be nearly impossible to reach out to every single property owner in town as this map was crafted for future use. We did an amendment, which we made that process to help the developer of this development, Cedar Ridge, and we could add that to the process if, so we could potentially add that to the process if you guys wanted to see a notification around that track within so many feet. At this time, I wish I had a developer that was interested in doing this development. It would have been easier to place that, but we don't at this time. So it's kind of just picking the corridor where we see that momentum.
Okay, you know that I have expressed before I don't agree with having to trade from the 15 acres to another 15 acres in town. I don't agree with the master plan binding us, but in spite of that, I think we're only talking about the 15 acres. It seems strange to me we wouldn't communicate with the owners of those 15 acres saying that we were going to make a change. that will affect them as they sell that property in the future, even though it doesn't affect them now?
Well, I think Planning Commission as well as City Commission this evening is a great opportunity to have that discussion. It will cost the city money to facilitate that process and do the notifications and order the bonded abstractors list. So I didn't want to spend that money in vain, but it's also not part of the process that we currently have adopted, not to say it can't be amended.
There's not but 2 property owners within the 300-foot radius of that location in 45th and
Well, it would go across the streets as well, if it's in the 300.
yeah, there's nothing across the street.
Rebecca and I have had this conversation. One of the property owners did reach out to me, expressed a little bit of trepidation. I think the thought process is great, being near the new school. High density near a new school, I think, is a great idea. So I appreciate that. But Rebecca knows this, so this won't be a surprise to her. I believe it should be on the north side of the road. North side of the road lends itself to connectivity. We're now going to 4-lane 45th, put in a high density, the property north of 45th is currently vacant. It's owned by the school. The property south, the intent of this is to not lose 15 acres of high density. The property to the south has 2 R1 single-family homes on it, also has water features, and topography is challenging for a high-density development. Assuming a high-density development did go in there, you would be asking the children who will access that school to cross a 4-lane street. So to me, I really like the general location, the north side, what I see as orange or medium density. Changing that to some of that to high density makes more sense to me, because then you can put one sidewalk in that connects high density school, grocery stores, restaurants. Or a trail or something. Yeah, whatever you wanted. To me, that makes a lot more sense. And it's land that we might be actually able to use, because I think the point of having these land designations is to be able to use it, not just say we have the designations. And so that was my thought. Rebecca's not surprised by my comment. She and I have discussed this the other day. That's my, she did confirm this doesn't impede the current property owners from doing what they want within the current zoning. Any type of development they wanted to do, but this is a new process for us. I agree with Bob, it can probably, or Commissioner Weaver, sorry. It can probably use some tweaking of how we want to facilitate these discussions. But me, from my standpoint, I'm more comfortable with it on the north side, land that doesn't have development on it already. I'd probably yield to Commissioner Salter, as it's kind of over in his territory, so, and his thoughts. Not that you have to have any, but.
I think I voiced my opinion, and I don't think the southeast corner is the proper place to try to get the 13, 15 acres or whatever it is. I agree with the north side. I don't know how far west the school land commission goes.
All the way to the corner, on the northeast side, they're going to come all the way to that corner of Leo and 45th.
If Leo went straight north.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So be on the northeast corner.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would be wrong with that designation there?
I think you guys can certainly switch it. Good question.
I was going to say, right now, both sides, the north and the south, so the 2 areas we're discussing right now are slated for medium density residential. So is the trade-off that great from what it is right now? I don't think so. I think Commissioner Matthews has a good point on the north side and maybe having a safer walk to school and connectivity. So I would be in support of that.
But you were looking to replace low density with the high, and if we're on the north side, we're replacing medium, already medium, with high.
Well,
The interesting, I don't want to interrupt you, my two maps don't match.
Well, I'm struggling with,
I'm looking on a satellite map on my phone, and it looks like it's right in the middle of the pond.
no, well, it would be to the east of the pond.
To the east of the pond.
Mhm.
Okay, that helps.
Yes.
When we're looking at that from such a 40,000-foot view, it's hard to tell exactly where that is.
So it'd be that area. It's just-
Okay, that's Leo.
here it is.
Okay. This is right here. This is.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I got lost on
Oh,
that.
the dark blue,
Yeah, school land was dark blue.
dark
wasn't it?
blue. That's what they were talking about. This is.
But CLO owns that all the way to Leo, is that right?
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Yes,
CLO owns that all the way to Leo. I didn't
yes,
know that.
for that northeast corner.
So would we not be accomplishing the goal by replacing medium with high? You're needing to replace low with high.
So, part of the issue with the R1, all the yellow that's on the map, is 80% of it is existing today. So whenever staff was analyzing different potential areas, it's really hard with a single-family established subdivision to say we're going to reallocate this. Or maybe there was a phase and say, now we're going to slate it as this. And so 80% of that yellow really is already built and here today.
Northside makes more sense if it accomplished what we need to accomplish.
Yeah.
I know it's not low, it's already medium.
But, Mr. Commissioner, I think our ultimate goal is to make sure we have a portion of our land use map that would be categorized as high-density
High
development.
density. So that's the bigger concern.
That's the bigger
That's bigger
concern.
concern rather than having to go from low, medium, to, as long as we get some of it. Yeah, because I agree with what Amos said.
Northside.
Yeah. The issue at that point would be if we could get it from
CLO.
CLO.
Certainly.
But at least we've got it designated for that, and the way that fills in around that school, they may want to do that.
Yeah, they may well be able to get it developed.
How would staff feel about that?
I would support the north side. You've got on that corner, it looks like you've got about 25 or 30 acres that's already high density. So if we're looking at the medium orange, which is the medium, is there a specific preference on how far east or west that should be?
My suggestion would be
A joint.
As closer to the
land.
school as
Closer to the school,
possible?
yeah, without doubt. I would think that corner, they'd probably be looking more for commercial
Yeah.
stuff, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, you wouldn't want to say that.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
So you wouldn't want to join it to the dark brown color?
Well, I think some of that's in the floodplain, so it might,
Yeah.
Rebecca, help me out here,
Once-
but it might not be developable.
I have one more question about where we're putting it. And we might, do we have an option to defer and revisit this?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because my question would be, looking at the map, we're fairly directly north of the airport. How far back or north do we have to be to go up for the flight path of the aircraft?
I have that document, but I don't know that off the top
I
of my
think we
head
need to-
because it's tiered.
We always have to evaluate that. yeah.
Because we're pretty much due north of the, as I'm looking at it, we're pretty much due north of the airport.
And that actually came up today when I was looking at this, where you're located right now, it's basically due north of our ILS system.
Yeah, and you can't, I
and
mean,
we can't impede.
Can't go up.
Yeah.
so we need to go to either side, whichever side allows us to go that way.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Flight path's a little bit east of there, isn't
I think we just need to,
It's pretty close.
It might be just a little east of there, where she suggested.
yeah. I think it's just worth confirming rather than designating it tonight and then coming back.
Yeah, I would
So-
ask if you guys would defer. I can check on the FEMA floodplain. I can check on the flight path for the airport and confirm that. I can also use my contact at CLO and discuss this with them. And then I could have something thorough for you at next meeting.
Including generating a legal description of the new proposal.
Yeah.
If we want to hire a surveyor to do that, sure.
Well, we can get close.
Okay.
Anything else you guys want to add to the list?
That'll all be considered moving to the north.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to add, Bobby?
I make a motion, we defer this item to a future meeting, yes.
Referring to a future meeting? I'll second. All righty, we have a second. Thank you, Rebecca, for all your work on this conversation. So we have a motion and a second to defer this to a future meeting then. And let's call the question. And that passes 7-0, so we'll talk about this again.
Very good.
All righty, item 12, consideration of an ordinance relating to arts and public places, amending Chapter 22 of the Shawnee Municipal Code by creating a new Article 9 of Chapter 22, providing for the art and public places, providing for repeal, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an emergency clause. And Rebecca's back up.
I'm back. So, one of the goals, objectives of our 2040 comprehensive plan talks about public art in our community. It talks about how that enhances community image, civic health, equity, and economic development. I had the pleasure of having the head of the City of Oklahoma City's arts program on my planning commission for the last year and a half. And she's been a great mentor in looking at this ordinance, which is specifically modeled after the City of Oklahoma City's with a few changes. I'd like to go over those. As expressed in citizens' participation, I'll clarify a couple of items that came up. There is within the ordinance the ability to have, if there is a special circumstance, so maybe that is a 501c3, maybe that is a specific federal fund or grant-funded project, we would have the ability to waive that requirement. We don't want to just X out all types of organizations, as we would like to encourage participation, but I do understand with the tax credit project, as well as where they are in the scope of project and what they have put into the project, that this would not be appropriate for that specific type of project. So we do have that opportunity. There's also a $100,000 cap, so that would be a substantial, that would be a $10 million project. Again, we're talking about 1% of the total cost of the project. And there is an opportunity to ask if that needs to be lowered. Maybe they want to trade that for something. We want to do more landscaping, but can we only do 80,000? We have the flexibility within this ordinance. As far as the membership, there are 7 roles proposed for this commission. 2 of those members would be at-large members. They would have to reside within Shawnee city limits. And then we have 1 member that would be from an arts or cultural organization. We also have 4 members that would be professional roles on the commission. such as a professional artist, an architect, a landscape architect, someone with construction knowledge. All of those would be appropriate professionals. We haven't limited in this draft those to city limits, as it can be very hard to find that specific professional inside city limits, plus someone that has the passion and willingness to volunteer their time. And so I felt like that may be hard to collect those specific people that are really going to be the right positions to get this off the ground if we put that limitation on the 5 members. I know that there are arts and cultural commissions, arts and cultural organizations that are around Shawnee but not in Shawnee, so that would be an example of someone that might serve that role, but be disqualified if we had the city limit parameter.
I mean, we've got other commissions that are set up that way, like beautification committee, park and rec, those kind of committees.
Yes, I believe some are. Some are specific and some allow for members to be outside. I've talked to several people that are excited about this, that really think it's going to, when you think of 1%, it's smaller than the sales tax you pay at the store. It's smaller than the tithe you give at church. It's just 1%, but I think the capability to have a significant impact on our community is great with this ordinance. The ordinance and the commission kind of dovetail together. So the commission would be a recommending body that would report to you all and pass along the recommendation. They would review projects and art submittals, and then they would pass those along to you for final decision. So I feel like it's flexible in the fact that it has the cap, it has the exception for special circumstance, such as Ashley and I were talking last week. The water treatment plant would be an example of a significant project that we have on our side. Now, do we really need to invest a lot of public art at the treatment plant? Probably not. That's also a financed project, so we wouldn't have that expectation. But I think that it has the ability to have some major impact. OBU has a wonderful fine arts program that's really kind of a pillar in the community. We have several art galleries and artists, a lot of talent within our community that I think is excited about this and is ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work.
Questions?
Let me start.
I'm confused.
Well, I think the first thing I would ask is that I've been on this commission just since July. Never heard anything about this until I got an agenda item on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that people have been communicated with on this, either previous commissions or people in the community or property owners. Has there been discussion with the public?
So there has been discussion with the public starting 3 years ago as we worked with RDG on our 2040 comprehensive plan. And it has a section in there about next steps, and it talks about this ordinance specifically and the establishment of the commission. So this idea was really catalyzed from the public sessions that we had pre-COVID, when we could meet and invite people to open homes. And so this really is a product of the community and their desires.
Okay, I don't know that that was an efficient product or efficient process. However, what I want to see this happen in some form. I don't know that it's the form that is presented, but I would like to see the public involved now, not 3 years ago, but now, and have an opportunity to provide input. We have businesses or people that have built, had projects that did not contribute to this because we didn't have this up until now. We're only going to have this carried by all new construction. I'd like to see a way that we maybe spread it out as to how some people participate. I don't know what that way is. but there's people out there that maybe would have some ideas and suggestions, and those that might be impacted that are looking at future projects. Cost of materials right now, I believe, has gone up about 15%, 20% on new construction, and a 1% margin on $1 million project is a significant amount that either is less profit or adds to the cost of that. So I just like to see us bring the community together, whether, it would have been nice to have a conversation with the commission before it was presented publicly. So at least we had some opportunity to ask you questions and share these concerns. But I'd at least like to defer it or outright defeat it and bring it back and have some further input from our community.
What does that look like in a COVID-19 setting?
I'm sorry?
What does that look like in a COVID-19 setting, having community events or input or outreach?
We might have to put it off beyond the next 6, 8 months. We may just have to defer that until we have time. I'm not trying to give the solution right here. I'm trying to say that's a concern that I have that I think the public shares, but with not having input directly into what we're asking to be done. I'm not trying to give you the answers. I'm trying to say people can come together and come up with some better answers. And that would be my hope. I'm not comfortable with us making this decision at all tonight with no more information that we've had prior to tonight.
Are there certain pieces of the commission or the ordinance that's proposed that you have doubts about? Like, are there specific pieces that staff could work on that?
Not without the public input, no. I would totally oppose moving forward without the public having input on this.
Didn't we have the public input in 2017, 18, and 18? Through all those meetings?
Yeah, we finalized that plan in October, and those dialogues, the open houses, the conversations, the online community survey, all of that took place up until adoption. I understand that not everyone has been on the horseshoe for the duration of that time. The comprehensive plan process kicked off before I came to Shawnee as well. But we have had those conversations for several years.
That's been used as reasoning for the master plan from the 2040 plan and from 2017. However, all these specific projects weren't addressed. It was an overall process that much of the public was not involved in, right or wrong. And so right now I'm asking that we get the public involved and we address it now, instead of looking back to a 3-year discussion that most of us up here weren't even involved in, and that's been talked to by Commissioner Seahorn previous as well, that we just have not done a good enough job in keeping the public in the loop. That's my request, that's my concern.
Thank you.
I mean, my question is probably what's considered, or let's say the hospital they're building out on Harrison Street, probably a $7-8 million project?
$9.
So $70,000. What would be your vision of what they would do with the $70,000?
Well, I think they're too far down the road for us to be able to enforce this. I would defer to Joe on that determination, but
Just an example.
just an example of what that could look like.
You build a building, what's your vision of what you're going to do?
So I think that could look like different forms. They have a really open glass front, so they could potentially have murals and artwork that you can see from the outside. That could be a sculpture that's in front of their building. I think that we would want the applicant or that project to have a lot of creative input, because it's going to be theirs. Maybe it reflects some of the values that they have as an organization. I think that there's a lot of different things. I think of St. Francis Hospital in Tulsa that has the blown glass ceiling on the first level. And so that would be an example of how they could incorporate that art, and it could be appreciated by the community.
So Rebecca, could some of these
Yes.
artistic elements of a building, could they be considered functional and also artistic to be part of the 1%? Or does it always have to be 1% in addition to the cost of the building?
No, I think it could be functional and artistic as well. I also think that some of the materials that they're going to spend money on, whether it's masonry, whether it's paint, some of those different mediums, they're just going to redirect and put into art. So they're still going to be buying a lot of that essentially, depending on what they choose to do. It's just going to go towards something creative instead of something that's solely utilitarian.
I like that better.
This is a side note, and I think I've had it addressed. My phone started blowing up from bankers and home builders trying to, because they were wanting clarification, understanding, and it's my understanding that this does not apply to residential home building. This is places that are
This would be
open, places that are
commercial.
open to the public.
Yes.
Okay.
And the city would try, like in the 2 master plans that we have teed up in the design process, we would try to do that as well and give something for the public to enjoy in those parks. So we want to practice what we preach when it's appropriate regarding the project on the municipal side.
And I think Brad does want some art at the water facility.
So is it going to be on new construction only or remodels also?
It would have to be a pretty big remodel. Again, that could, if it's a very small project, like a $5,000 or $10,000 project, we're probably going to waive that and call it a special circumstance because 1% of that just isn't, it's not going to do a whole lot. So I think we would use discretion and have that ability depending on the size of the remodel.
So this commission would have their monthly meetings like all of our other boards and commissions. So there would be, ample opportunity at those meetings for the public to be involved and give their opinions on projects and what they're proposing at those meetings before they would come to us.
Yes. And we haven't put the volunteer, obviously you guys have to bless this and approve it.
Right.
So we haven't put the volunteer application. We don't have recommendations. This is all kind of starting from the ground and trying to work its way up. So I have had a lot of interest and conversations in my tenure here with folks that are really excited. I thought it might be hard. It's hard to get people to volunteer. You guys have the hardest job in the room and you volunteer your time to do it. But I had a lot of positive response to this, and they said we should have done this a long time ago, and they think that we just really have that passion and talent in our community.
Right, well, there definitely is that. I mean, I'm pretty well connected in the art community here in town through my photography, and I mean, I can tell you, we have artists here that go toe-to-toe with people anywhere, and there's a lot of excitement in the art
It's a
community.
good move. I mean, we go back 30 years ago when no landscaping was required to what we have now. I mean, just look how much nicer everything looks because we require landscaping.
Continue
So,
with that, yeah.
Whether we like it or not, I mean,
It's the next step.
it's the next step.
But for the last,
And it's a minimal cost, just like at 1%, it's not,
Well, and I think it
it's not
does,
gonna keep a guy from building their not.
yeah, and it's a big difference if it's on top of the cost or if it's part of the cost,
Right,
meaning
because
functional versus,
You look at, First United Bank, where they went in and, the design, I mean,
full design.
yeah, I mean,
Very
so
cool.
that figures into the deal. If a guy's putting up a metal building and that's all it is, then, I mean, what are you gonna make it look like?
Right.
So I don't have a problem.
I'm on this year's class of leadership arts,
But,
so.
and again, I think Bob's right to where I think a lot of times the public isn't directly involved in what we do and doesn't know what we're doing and like, contacting them on or annexing them or whatever it be.
Right, whatever.
I think the process we do is pretty poor. Just, people don't know what's going on a lot of times. They don't read the paper. They don't, it's
It's
different than
it's
it
harder.
usually, and you take the older clientele, they're not online.
Right,
So it's a.
Public engagement is one of the most challenging tasks we have.
The young clientele or the young group is so attached to the phone and
Yep.
internet and Twitter and Facebook. I mean, they think we ought to know everything, but we
With
don't.
the more options that we have, I think it's actually made it a lot harder.
Oh, yeah, I think it has.
Well,
Because we separated that.
let me maybe take issue just a little bit with, there's a difference between involvement and engagement. Like, because I attended a bunch of meetings during the 2040 plan. I was on a committee. City staff made every effort possible to engage as many people as would engage. I mean, they did social media, they did stuff at the mall on the placards, they did, I mean, a variety, I don't remember them all.
There was stories in the paper.
Yeah, stuff in the
Very well,
paper.
they covered it
I
nicely.
mean, and they did what I felt was a really good job of getting around the community. We hosted a group at Community Market. The fact that the city would come in to a social services place and seek that input, I appreciate it. So government does take time. You know, it takes time to go through the planning process with RDG. It took longer than probably, I wasn't on the commission, so maybe I shouldn't say it took longer than it should have for the commission to ratify it, but as maybe a slightly disgruntled planning commission member who was waiting on the city commission. So that process takes time, and then we're here. So the fact that it takes time doesn't mean that the community wasn't involved. I mean, it's been a very involved process. And I think, in some sense, the creation of the Arts and Culture Committee or whatever, opens the door for those conversations that need to take place of how it will further develop. In my mind, this isn't the be-all and end-all. This is the beginning, but because it's government, we have to have a formalized beginning. We can't just, have, off-the-record meetings forever.
And you can't make people show up for those.
And that's the thing, you
that's
cannot make
hard.
people
It
show
was
up.
very disappointing throughout that process for the.
And we go through a long process of, trying to engage the community, and people, a limited number show up, and then an ordinance like this shows up, and everybody's like, well, you never told me. There were 3 years. And not that it was perfect, but there was a lot of effort put in to engage the community.
Go ahead, Bob.
I'm not opposed to the Arts Commission. I'm opposed to the 1%, and I'm opposed to lack of input. I would like clarification, even though if we move forward with this tonight, I'll vote against it. But I'd like for you to clarify. My understanding is that 1% goes into a pool. And I think your suggestion that you're given to, or the example to Commissioner Seahorn, was how they would incorporate art into their facility. So clarify for me, if you would, is that money going to go into a pool that's overseen by the 7 members, or is it going to be up to that project to determine what their 1% is going to be used for in art in their project?
Yes, so let me clarify. The 1% would be project specific. So 1% of the project that you have slated for you to have on your site. In places like the water treatment plant or something where it doesn't make sense, there's a potential, or you guys could ask to amend that to where it was like a fee in lieu of, and it could go into a spot and maybe be reallocated to a public park. But we really want this to be project specific. We want your windshield tour of Shawnee to be lined with art. We think that it's going to bring people together. I think the establishment of this is going to provide the soundboard for those folks to have conversations. There's not too much besides the 1% that's really committed to by forming the committee.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to build this is hypothetical, I'm going to build a $1 million project in downtown Shawnee. $10,000 will go into that for that art for my facility.
Yes.
I don't get to choose that, this 7-member group?
No, you get to choose it, and then you would submit your application. It would be reviewed by the Arts Commission, so that's where those professional roles come in. How is it going to be affixed to the surface? Is it going to be weather resilient? All of those things. And then it comes to you all for final approval. So we want to empower whoever the developer is or the builder of the project to have creative freedom, whatever that may be.
So at the same time, say if Commissioner Weaver's going to build a $1 million building in downtown Shawnee, thank you very much. If he said, okay, I'm going to put like a fountain or something outside, which would be hard to do downtown, but if he was going to do that and he wanted that to be considered towards the number for art, then that probably could happen then if it was.
Absolutely.
But would that have to come before that committee, or could I, as the developer, just decide this is what I'm going to do with my 1%?
Yeah, you would submit your idea to the commission. They would recommend an approval.
Would I have to do that?
Yes. Yes, and to be in line with the Federal Visual Arts Act and different things, we really need to have that review and recommendation for approval come to you guys for final decision making. So that would be the main function of that body.
So that function, just like the planning commission in essence?
Or traffic commission.
Yeah, so it would come through, they would satisfy this commission, this commission, this commission, a recommendation comes to us with all the recommendations for approval, we approve.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, but just to be clear, the developer still has the latitude to decide whether they want to apply that. Yeah.
So you just submit that with your plans?
Yeah. And we're not going to, as a city, dictate to them what they can do for art, so, I mean, that's not our place.
I think it's a good start.
I'm on the leadership arts class this year, and I mean, and I hear from folks all across the state, from corner to corner, and, about similar things in their community, and it's, universally been something that they've, been very, very in favor of. Of course, you're hearing from folks that are involved in the art community, so kind of expect that.
I had a note on my initial read through of notes, and I think it's answered, but Commissioner Weaver referenced it a little bit. I had circled the 1% on my first read and put, can we stair step this? But that was before I had the knowledge that it can be a functional expense. Because I was looking at where we're adding 1% to all the total, on top of all the total costs. Could we do it at like 0.5% for 5 years, then increase it to 1? I have less of an issue if it's functional.
So it can be part of your landscaping fee. Just like for a tire store, I don't know what you're gonna do artsy, but we are required to do the landscaping, so.
Right.
Tire statue.
Yeah.
Tire statue, there you go.
Roughly, it's 10%. You have a tree for every so many feet of street frontage that you have. Half of your trees have to be evergreen, the other half can be deciduous. And then there's a shrubs multiplier that goes with that. So your ground cover, your Bermuda grass, your planter beds, all of that counts to the 10%. And that 10% is off of the total site. So.
And there's also a requirement that it be maintained for a period of time, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And we need to, there's a lot of places that, what's the period of time that's required that they keep them alive and replace when they're dead?
So it just says that they should maintain it to that standard. There's not a lot of teeth in that ordinance. It's probably something as we get our new zoning code and our subdivision regulations that we look at those areas of code that are either vague or ambiguous and don't help us carry out the intent that really isn't put into words in an adequate manner.
I know that's off subject, but you gave me an open.
This may be a really random question. Maybe it's a Joe question. Sorry, Joe. Could we pass sections 1 and 2? Can we, like, if we want to continue to hash out the fee, and I don't know that we do, I'm just looking at what our options are. Could we establish the commission tonight and get that up and running, and then have even the commission hash out sections 3 and 4, or is that an option or not, Joe?
If you can dream it, we can do it.
That's the attitude I like. There we go.
If you'd make that motion, I'd second it.
But, I mean, what kind of impact would that, I mean, it would be hard for them, it wouldn't
Other
be
than just
anything for
slow
them to
down.
manage.
Yeah,
Without three in there, there's
Basically,
nothing there.
there's nothing for them, not that I'm sure they couldn't come up with things to do, but if there's no funding or project applications, the mission of that may
I mean,
change
the
just a little
likelihood would
bit.
be if we did 1 and 2 and tasked them with creating section 3 and 4, they might just bring us section 3 and 4.
Well, I know, for instance, the Salvation Army would like to do a mural. And if this could be a group that they could apply to that committee, that is functioning, that's something they can do without the funding. They could have oversight of those future murals, and that's just in response to your suggestion.
Yeah, there's a lot of legalities that go into murals and so forth that people aren't aware of. So, like, if a group like that was to jump into it, there's some commitments that kind of go with that they're not going to be aware of, but I think a group like this could give them guidance on that.
Get you a chair.
I know.
We should have got her one.
Pizza.
She'd probably take a chair and pizza. What else you guys got? Other questions? Benny, you've been quiet.
No, I've just been sitting here thinking, it's mentioned 2 or 3 times, and Commissioner Weaver eloquently stated it, but yes, there were meetings since 2017, many, many different committee meetings. But what I found, and we all know of one particular project, if you were not like-minded, you didn't get invited to the next meetings. And only 4 or 5 people made decisions. And people didn't know what was going on. And I kind of think this is going down that road. There's been people talking about it, but it's not been out in public. And then it gets sprung on the commission to do something in one meeting.
Which I'm sure OKC's got, what's their, is it a 1% deal? What about Edmond and Norman, do the same thing?
They have similar, I would have to confirm it's the 1%, but Edmond does, Norman does, City of Enid does. They all have arts commissions and an ordinance that helps to encourage and catalyze public art within the community.
I think the concept's good, it's just how do we police it?
It's going to be similar to the way the landscape
I mean, that bottom
It's
line's
the
gonna be
same.
like
Yeah.
landscape.
Yeah,
So you're gonna
it's the
spend
same thing.
11% on landscaping now, it's
Hopefully the art will hold up better than some of the landscaping.
True. I mean, the fact that you can make it functional is a big deal to me. I mean, it's going to hold up better than landscaping because it's going to be functional.
Yeah, the functionality part.
That's huge.
Makes it easy.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing, you're throwing the card, you could do 9% on landscaping and 1% on arts. Then your cost doesn't go up for the builders.
That's true.
I don't think we're doing enough on landscaping to begin with, frankly.
Well, and I think, I don't know, I mean, because you take a $5 million project, that's $50,000 in landscaping, that's a bunch.
It's not dollars, it's footage on landscaping though, right?
Yes, it's the 10% and then the multiplier for trees and shrubs. so 10% of the site.
Oh, 10% of the site?
Yes, not of the project cost.
Size.
I like the project cost better.
It'll be less than landscape.
Which that includes sod, and I'm sitting here adding in my head, I've got. So I guess the process would be approve it and get the commission together to do it, is what we're doing?
So, kind of step us through that. So if it did get approved, you'd come with us, you'd put out for people to serve on it like we do all the other
Yes,
commissions? Or
we would post that application for volunteers with specific interest in this commission online. I was going to, if this was or when it is approved, have an information session so that those volunteers understand, what they're signing up for and what they're committing their time to. So I would like to do that, maybe in a couple different mediums, in person and online, to satisfy comfort levels of individuals. And then, I don't know if there's a set time, Lisa, where we leave that open a number of weeks or a month, but we would follow that. 30 days.
And then we would approve those members.
Yes.
Mayor's
Right.
You would appoint.
Right. I mean, obviously,
And
we'd
the
all-
commission would ratify it.
We would all ratify it, right?
I mean, I think I shared some of Commissioner Weaver's concerns coming in. I think at least on the 1%, I think the functional expense to me means that we're not really adding much cost for builders, certainly not a full 1%. And, to me, this goes some distance in making us a more inclusive community, in that it provides an outlet for artists in that community that we haven't had up to this point. And I think it's needed, and I think it'll be a good thing for our community in the end. I was worried about the cost for development, but I think that's been satisfied in my mind.
And I don't think this was something that was sprung on the commission. I think this is Rebecca doing her job, looking for the next thing to improve our community. And I think that it was quite a bit of intentional work and intentional effort put into it as well.
Probably the ones that are gonna have the hardest time swallowing it are the individual businesses. I mean, the small business, you have Integris or whoever come in. It's just part of doing business, but then you have a mom and pop shop down on Main Street gonna move out here and build a building out here, that $20,000 is a big deal to them.
Yeah.
That's the issue is, we lose sight of, it's hard-earned money for a lot of people. That's probably where the 0.5% probably is easier to swallow than 1%, because it's,
My math's right, though, $20,000 is a $2 million project.
Was that isn't much of a deal anymore?
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I'm not.
Spend that, does it?
No. But if you shrink it down much less than that, then
You can't do it.
your average $500,000 project, which is probably bare minimum for anything new, with land costs included, then you're down.
But you're not talking land costs, you're just talking construction costs.
So to compare the painted horses that we have in town that come in the standing or the raised form. And I can't speak to what they pay the artist to commission, but to buy the actual horse, to commission the artist, to install and provide the landscaping around the horse is roughly about $10,000. So that might put something visual in your mind to compare what you get for the money or what you could potentially get for the money. So spending $20,000, I mean, it would be pretty easy to do, but you'd have to have a $2 million project for us to ask that of you.
And I think what I keep coming back to, you could spend that money in your building, and it's gonna make your facility nicer, as opposed to, the horses are great, but it's a horse out by the street.
So you could, I mean, you know, like us, you could come in and do a mural before you walk in the door with tile. Or, you know, whatever.
Absolutely.
Or artistic glass, or decorative ornamental front doors.
Lots of options. And that would be my, is having a wide spectrum of what you can use. That's what concerns me the most. What does qualify for art, and that's, you know, opinion at that point.
I think that always is, though, what's art, what's not. I mean,
But if you're building the project, it's gonna be your option.
Your vision.
Your vision.
Yeah.
As long as we have that, then, you know, I'm good.
And the commission's job would be to help those individuals fulfill that vision and to make it into something that, like we said, would be a long-standing thing that would require some kind of insane upkeep or be something that in a few years would not be functional or would not be able to maintain what it was originally designed for,
Yes.
hopefully.
I'm throwing a curve here, too.
Yeah.
I'm always devil advocate. All right, a guy that's already got a horse out front, already spent money on art, they can do a remodel, and then comes to you, what are you gonna require them to do there? Are you gonna let them use their existing artwork out there?
Yes, that can count. We're happy they have a horse, and we would gladly count that towards that amount.
So is there something in the ordinance that states that?
Planner
That you
discretion.
can use existing?
It's planner discretion is how it is what would envelop that concept, Commissioner.
She's not the planner, and 10 years from now, the next guy comes in. I think it
Yeah.
needs to be in black and white.
Can I,
Absolutely.
Commissioner Flood just brought up a point that I kind of wanted to dispute a little bit. You said you didn't feel it was sprung on anybody. How many of us up here recall 3 years ago in the discussion of the 2040 plan, this 1% discussion going to art? Any of you except the mayor? The mayor. Anyone else? I mean, I'm asking that question because.
He was on planning.
Well,
I was on planning.
when I was a legislator, we had many items at times that would come in the bill, and it would put us in a position that if you want that bill bad enough, you're gonna take some of the junk that goes with it. And I can see if we discussed 3 years ago, when not many people have been involved in that discussion, and then you say, well, that was there 3 years ago, you should have known about it, it's not a surprise to anybody. Well, it is a surprise. It's a surprise to me, and it's a surprise to a lot of other people. So I respectfully disagree that this is something that has been sprung upon us. It's a new item that's just been discussed. And I'd like, my whole deal is I'd like to see it discussed further with the public.
So how do you want us to do that?
Well,
Start back over where we were in 2017 and run through all those meetings again.
no,
And that's what's
No.
hard.
I think if this is an important topic, then we need to find a way to, if nothing else, tonight we've exposed, the public is aware, they'll be aware through the newspaper, they can communicate with us, they can express their views, even if it's not a public meeting. Give people an opportunity to know what we're looking to do to them. I mean, I think that's what the communication that when I decided to run for the city commission, is I wanted to help the people come together, trust this commission, and be able to have input and make a difference in what we do. And that was my position, and that's what I want to see us do. Not just on this issue, but every issue that we consider.
If we depend on print, getting the message out?
No, I just use the newspaper as an example.
Okay.
You know, we have many mediums. We can do it through our water bills if we want to do that. I think every person in the city could get it through a water bill. We just need to find, we can do anything and everything with that same philosophy of saying, okay, how are we going to communicate to the public? And we don't communicate anything, Mark, and that's the concern. I'm not going to tell you how I think that we need to get it out, but how do we communicate anything that we look to do? We get an agenda that's presented to us. We have an opportunity to discuss that agenda with the city manager. We come to the meeting, we raise our objections, or we support it, or we do what we want. And many of those items, the public doesn't have an opportunity to have input. I want input. I want to hear, and what input I did have, some of you may have had input similar as well, was objecting, and because they saw the language in the paper, and some of them didn't even know the details of it, which I didn't either, except until I read and studied my agenda. So, you know, I know you're not intentionally putting me on the spot. I'm not trying to say I have the best way. I'm saying this is not the best way, and I don't agree with this procedure in trying to do this vote tonight. That's, I think I've probably said plenty and more than enough tonight, but I think you all know how I feel. And it's a sincere feel. It's not an anger toward anybody. It's not a criticism of anybody. It's that this is the way I believe that I was elected to the commission to try to respond.
So I know that's frustrating. I mean, I can remember 3 years ago, it was right about the time I was elected to the commission, when all those meetings were going on, and I was very excited about those. And I went to my knowledge, every one of those, just because I wanted to sit there and listen to see what people had to say. And I think one meeting there was probably 40 people there. Another meeting, I think that we had out at community renewal, there may have been, 30, 40 folks there. And there was one we had, at church here off of Harrison, and, waited, and finally 2 people showed up 5 minutes before closing time. And I know there was a few others held around town, and sadly, I mean, there was just a handful of folks that showed up, but I know that the city government at the time had put that out about every way I think is humanly possible to do it. It was through the newspapers, and they did, a good job of reporting it and putting the information out for us. It was social media was used. I mean, you name it, it was done. And sadly, we had very few folks show up, and that was very disappointing to me, because I was very excited about hearing people's input.
And we had the online survey to give them that
Online
opportunity
surveys.
as well.
Yeah. And, I don't know, it used to be so much easier years ago. And part of that probably just showing my age, but it used to be that you just put it in the local newspaper and everybody saw it. Everybody saw it. And now there's so many different ways. It's just gotten harder and harder to do that. And I think if someone figured that out, they'd be a millionaire, obviously. But it is so hard. And I think a lot of people, because this has been 3 years ago when this plan, the comprehensive plan was made and everything that came in it, and then something comes up like this that was a part of that and a part of that discussion, and then nobody's heard it, but I think we forget. We had
But the ones that were
this-
involved at the time.
Just this last couple of weeks, when we had all the frozen pipes and all the notices that would go out, the Shawnee alerts, I tried hard the last couple of weeks to get the message out that, that system was available, but it's been available for a year. And I had a lot of people ask me, here's a system that, we've only known about this just in the last couple of days, but we've had it a year. And I don't know, somehow, and especially with something like that, it's like, it isn't important because it wasn't an emergency that, and here we had a citywide emergency, so all of a sudden it became more important. And, I know, what we're talking about right here tonight was discussed 3 years ago, and there was a lot of favorable input on it for the folks that showed up, and I don't know. And I was asked even here recently, we can have public meetings, but I think people tend to forget sometimes that's exactly what we're having right here.
I bet if we did a town hall meeting, you'd have less than 20 people show up.
And sadly, you're probably right.
Because unless it directly affects them, they're just complacent to it. So I don't know.
Someone asked yesterday on one of the Shawnee community Facebook pages if we were still under the mandatory water boil. And so I'm going, we've got all of these ways we're pushing out information, but if those people don't choose to engage, then that's the part. I don't know where the point of success is that we can check the box and say X amount of people provided feedback, or we got to fill out this survey, or are aware about it, or are in support of it. I'm more than happy to listen to suggestions or ways you all would like to see us engage more. But we did have that conversation from 17 till October of 19 when the plan was done. So this is not Rebecca's idea. This is the citizens of Shawnee and surrounding areas and those engaged in the arts community. And it's just a mirror of what the other communities like Oklahoma City and Enid are doing to encourage that. And so there are the caveats. If there's a special circumstance, we can accommodate.
Well, and that was going to be one of my comments, and I asked Chance and Joe, and you just mentioned it. We've thrown around 3 years ago and 17 several times. That's when the process started. The process ended in October of 2019, when the plan was ratified. So it's not like 3 years ago, and then this was just over a year ago that this plan was ratified. And it takes a little while to get it there. And I mean, I want the public to be as involved as possible. It's why when we started the process on the comp plan, I specifically asked, please involve the people that I serve every day and bring one of these to community market. I want the public to be as involved as can be. At the same time, I don't know that it's fair to tell city staff all that you've done, radio, mall advertisement, print, in the newspaper, all that stuff that was inadequate. Now go do it again. I mean, we don't have any better ideas on how to get the community to engage or participate. We're just saying it was inadequate, so go do the same thing again.
Well, how many items were there in that master plan? How many topics were there discussed?
Several.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
Okay. So how can we ask, you say that's not adequate, how can we ask a citizen to be aware that we had an arts discussion of the 1%, or that we had whatever? I'll admit, I'm a community activist. I have been my whole adult life. I went to one of those meetings, and for some reason I didn't feel it was necessary, or I had other things or whatever. Doesn't mean I didn't care.
Sure, no,
But it
I-
does mean that I wasn't involved in that where there were 20 or 30 people.
But that doesn't mean you
that
didn't have the opportunity.
the opportunity was there and everyone else had the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And that's not, but just because we don't take advantage of the opportunity doesn't mean that we just run over everybody and without having that additional, at least communication, something more than a notice on a Friday before a commission on a Monday that we're gonna do something that affects.
So would your suggestion be that any city ordinance requires 30 days posting? I mean,
No, but-
all I'm doing is, I'm just asking for how,
Okay, this
if
one-
if we're gonna do it better, how are we gonna do it better?
I don't know, I'm asking on this one tonight. I'm voting against this recommendation tonight. I expressed why, and I will continue to oppose if we bring something before this commission on a Friday before a Monday without discussion of any of the commissioners or the public. I'm gonna continue to oppose
But
those
that's
things in
like
the
12 of
future.
the 14 items on our
Well,
agenda.
that was.
I mean, all I'm saying is we gotta apply it equally. You can't just be the ones we don't like.
Well, it's not a matter of not liking it.
No, what I mean-
I think I said from the beginning that I like the idea.
No,
And I like the idea of setting up the board.
Sure.
But I don't like the idea of us having something, this is already contentious. This is not just an easy item to just run through, or we wouldn't be spending so much time on it. But it is a matter of us discussing it, and I'm concerned enough about it to where I'm bringing up my concerns. And I have that,
I don't disagree, I mean.
I
all
hope
I'm
you'll
saying-
grant me that right.
Absolutely.
Oh, you
Thank you.
absolutely have that. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Without a doubt.
I have a procedural question
Yes, sir.
on the ordinance. In the ordinance, section 5 has an emergency clause. Is that automatically included in this, or I know that's always a separate vote.
It's a separate vote, right?
Yeah, there's really two ways that could be handled. You could strike it by interlineation from the original, as part of your original motion to approve it without the possibility of an emergency clause, or you could simply vote no on an emergency clause.
And
on a
what-
subsequent vote, if that was.
What is why would we include the emergency clause on this particular ordinance?
I think in this particular ordinance, it was included to, as we always do, when we have an emergency clause, to make it effective immediately, which would trigger the engagement of the commission.
And put out the application, advertise that they could apply to be on the commission.
Otherwise, there's a 30-day runway.
Okay. So it would be 30 days after without this?
After approval.
Actually, after publication.
So how are you gonna mandate if tomorrow I bring you, let's say we approve this, tomorrow I bring you plans to build a $2 million building,
Wouldn't apply. Not until it's established.
not until the commission was in place?
Yeah, so the commission is in place, and even then, I think there's going to be a significant degree of discretion that's going to have to be applied both at the planning level and at the arts commission level, because if projects are to a stage, which again, this is where that discretion comes in, but if projects are to a stage where it would be too late to add that type of cost, or to modify plans where significant professional expense has already been incurred, that's not something that I think anyone involved in this is interested in creating an impasse.
It's not meant to be detrimental. I'm going to make a motion to approve the ordinance as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve, a second by Daniel, so on number 12. So we will call the question. Oh, I'm sorry. You got to read this.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Lisa. An ordinance relating to arts in public places, amending Chapter 22 of the Shawnee Municipal Code by creating new Article 9 of Chapter 22, providing for the art in public places, providing for repeal, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for emergency clause.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll call the question. There we go. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing an old man's eyes here. Motion passes 5, 4, 1 against, 1 abstention. All right. Thank you guys very much. Move forward to item 13. Oh, emergency clause. So we need to vote on the emergency clause. Thank you for catching that. So,
I move to approve the emergency clause.
thank you, sir. And Mark, so we have a motion and a second for the emergency clause. Now we'll call the question. And same vote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 1 against, 1 abstention. All righty, thank you, gentlemen. Now we'll move on to 13. Consideration of an ordinance of the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma, amending Article 4, Sewers of Chapter 26, Facilities, bless you, of the Shawnee Municipal Code to regulate the use of fats, oils, and grease interceptors and water, oil, sand, or grit separators, and also providing for severability, codification, and repealer, and declaring an emergency. And Seth is up again.
Yes, sir. So this ordinance is intended really to replace some current code that's really just brief and leaves really everything up to the city's pretreatment inspector. So the current ordinance essentially reads, the grease, oil, and sand interceptors shall be provided by the user when, in the opinion of the inspector, they are necessary. So what we're really doing with the proposed ordinance is just trying to better define our requirement, and for new construction, for future development, and then of course for existing users. So with that said, the ordinance is intended to provide a guide for the disposal of fats, oils, grease, sand, and grit that goes into our sanitary sewer. And it's not meant to force compliant existing businesses into installing a new grease interceptor. It's meant strictly really to implement a good practice and to define what that practice is. So with that, I would open it up to questions from you guys.
Craig?
You want to go first?
Go ahead.
The wording on it is pretty out there. I mean, just like, because the way I read that, you would have to every 90 days have it done, regardless if it's at the 25% or not.
That's only for restaurant uses. That is not.
That doesn't say that in the.
I believe it does. It applies to only FSEs. So, so the minimum cleaning frequency for grease interceptor traps in all FSEs is every 90 days. So FSEs is defined at the beginning as food service. So it doesn't apply to automotive, for example. So
And then the 1,000-gallon tank, if a guy's already got a 500-gallon tank in.
So again, that wouldn't apply to somebody who's.
But if you sold the business to the next guy, it said in that, doesn't it say it has to come back to what the code is now?
So. So I'm looking at section 1, item B. The existing facilities are permitted to operate and maintain existing grease interceptors, provided they are appropriate in size and in efficient and operational condition. So basically it's stating if the trap is operating efficiently, then go ahead.
I read through this
Commissioner
100
Shehorn,
times.
what you're talking about, that clause under the maintenance section, that is if the facility changes ownership and then changes the type of waste disposal, that would subsequently require a larger interceptor.
Yeah, so if you had a business that was operating,
say as an automotive shop that had turned into a restaurant or that would require a larger interceptor, then at that point, that could be a potential possibility that you would have to
Or-
increase the size of your unit to make sure you're in compliance.
Yeah, or if they're operating as, say, a coffee shop, and then they change business, so when they're operating as a coffee shop, they may have an internal under the sink device, right? But then the second business is gonna, be making breakfast.
So
And
McDonald's moves in.
So the use change would be necessitate a change, not necessarily the change in ownership.
I guess some of the wording in it's pretty harsh.
Yeah, what's the, I guess right off the top of my head, the 1,000-gallon minimum? Where did that come from?
So that originally I think that came from, and Jason may correct me if that's wrong, that comes from other municipalities and what they have as a minimum, and then the common practice, so exterior units are only generated, exterior grease interceptors are only required for certain business types and usage rates, right? So defined as a generator. So that 1,000-gallon is not a huge grease interceptor, really.
It is in my book, because our plans were designed by Firestone, they only have 8,000 stores that they designed for, and for that particular usage, it was designed as a 500-gallon, which is a pretty substantial size tank and investment and hole in the ground. So, yeah, I was just curious, the 1,000-gallon, I thought 500 was standard for, in our facilities, pretty decent sized facility as far as.
So what else, the ordinance really, the genesis of the ordinance came from SMA and from their experience and what they've been doing over really the last 5 years. And so the input for the minimum really came from Jason, who I've asked to be here tonight. So if you have questions that you would like to ask of Jason, he is here tonight, but.
This is ultimately to protect our investment in our wastewater plants.
And lift stations.
And lift stations for that matter.
Yes.
Because we do have, instances where, in some parts of town where excess grease and grit and things that get into the pumps in the lift stations, and they burn those motors up. Or they ruin the pumps themselves.
And that can be up to $10,000 minimum.
Yeah. So this is ultimately to help protect our public investment.
As far as the 1,000-gallon is for food services. That's what it's targeted toward.
Car washes.
Yeah.
Car washes.
Yes,
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And that's the things that we've seen, Jason has seen, that affects our system.
I can see.
Again, that's in line with essentially every municipality in the state that has a pre-treatment program.
I agree, I mean, I absolutely agree it's needed, just the size and the expense of them for mine's done, but for moving forward, because I think, as Jason probably knows, I'm probably 8 years in before I got to my 25% in a 500-gallon tank. So,
That's depending upon the business.
right, but we're kind of hand tying everybody when this says 1,000 gallon. Minimum size of 1,000 gallon. Not including Appendix A, it's confusing. So what's Appendix A? And this looks like,
Appendix A is everything indoor, basically, so that's for indoor units.
okay, outdoor interceptors are of the minimum size of 1,000 gallon capacity are required for any generator not included in Appendix A.
And Appendix A is for indoor.
That's for the indoor,
intercept.
right, that's gonna be small.
Yeah, so that's basically for under sink.
Under the
interceptors.
sink, okay.
Outdoor are of the minimum size of 1,000 gallon capacity are required for any generator not included in Appendix A. Well, so that's not saying what I think it says, is if it's, an outdoor is, got to be 1,000 gallons.
Correct.
Minimum.
I believe so.
And then how often are the,
So, you're talking about cleanouts, how often are the cleanouts required? So it would be annually for, non-FSEs, so
Non-food service.
for non-food service, for.
so if I'm at 5% sediment after a year, I still gotta spend the money to pump the thing out?
That's the way it's worded currently. If you guys would like to strike that and change it to where it says,
Percentage.
the percentage based, so upon, it should be inspected annually by the city inspector, and upon determination that it reaches the 25% mark. I think that's a fair change, I think.
I think that'd be fair to everybody that,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
because they don't care what's in it. If they come pump it out, it's $2,000.
right, yeah, the trip, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Need it or not.
Yep.
But yeah, if it's there, it's there. It needs to be done, protect our water system for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the whole
absolutely.
goal of this. So we're
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
Constantly posting those
Yeah.
stations.
This Appendix A, Section 1B, where it says, without exception, an interceptor is required by any business defined as a generator.
Yes.
So define that to me.
Generator.
Who's a generator?
So the generator is defined at the beginning of the ordinance as a facility or business, including mobile sources, owning or operating a grease trap interceptor or water separator and or grit trap that contributes fog, grit, or other solids discharged to the city sanitary
So
sewer
it
system.
has to be somebody that's putting it into the sewer.
Yes.
It's basically giving y'all some teeth to find, to get the guys that aren't compliant.
To comply, right.
Yeah, the intent was definitely not to go after existing businesses. It was really to one, aid me in the design review, to tell people, hey, here's our ordinance you have to follow. Because our ordinance currently is basically follow the city inspector, which, as you know, when you're planning something, it's pretty hard to dictate on the design side. So it was one, to give me that, but then also allowed them the ability to, if there is a problem, remedy it.
Well, it doesn't have to all fall on Jason.
Right.
I mean, it's just, this way, it's not his
Well,
fault.
and it gives our pre-treatment coordinator
Right.
some teeth to use to actually enforce
Yep.
these.
So, but again, if you would like to make a motion to change the language in Section 3, Item A, for the minimum cleaning frequency, if you would like to change that for an annual inspection to the 25% mark, staff would definitely, approve that. Recommend it. There you go. There.
We knew what you meant.
We understood what you meant.
Yeah.
So, I don't know who in the room knows the answer, but I'm still stuck on that 1,000-gallon being substantially bigger than what we had done in the past. Yes, sir. I do. Is it 2 500s? Yeah, I took a picture of the plans where it. So those are.
Right, fixed off? Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I would say the 1,000 gallons, at least in my research, I looked at other municipalities of our size or larger, and the standard that Oklahoma City, Norman,
Okay.
they're all at 1,000.
I just pulled up the specs on mine, and it's just said Hausner Oil Water Interceptor, Drum Ride, Oklahoma, are equal with 500-gallon holding capacity. But I do what?
It's 1,000.
Well, I believe you. I knew you knew that answer, so. Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I understand that. It was just kind of the conversation is, we have staff and administration currently that common sense comes into play, but when you pass an ordinance, we may not always have that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Seth, can you repeat what?
Yeah.
I would like to make a motion with what you said.
Okay. So basically to strike the minimum cleaning frequency for all other non-food service generators is once per year, and make all non-food service generators to be inspected annually and determined if 25% is reached or not, and if it is reached, then have it pumped. If not, allow it for another year. That is section 3, item A.
3A.
I know that language will have to be clarified by Joe, but you got the gist.
Yes. I'll make a motion with what he said.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so we have a motion. Second. Mark. Okay. And Mark, and I think Joe's gonna read this.
Yes. An ordinance of the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma, amending Article 4 sewers of Chapter 26 utilities of the Shawnee Municipal Code to regulate the use of fats, oil, and grease interceptors and water, oil, sand, or grit separators, and also providing for severability, codification, and repealer, and declaring an emergency as amended by interlineation in the motion.
Man, you said that really good. Thank you, sir. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0, so we need to vote on the emergency clause also, correct? We don't have one in declaring an emergency, or do we? We need to vote on that, don't we?
Yes,
Yeah,
there is an
absolutely.
emergency clause.
Yeah.
So there is one in
Section 6.
there. So we're looking for a motion for emergency clause.
So moved.
Mark, okay, let's go ditto. All right, a motion and a second on the emergency clause. Let's call the question. Also passes 7-0. All righty, we get to item 14. Consideration of an ordinance amending portions of Chapter 25 taxation of the Shawnee Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 25 defining permanent resident, providing for the exemption and clarifying timing of payment, providing for repeal, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date. Hello, Ashley.
All right.
How are you?
I'm good. Okay, so this is mainly just cleanup language. This is some changes to the hotel motel surcharge. The first change is adding a definition of permanent residency and also just stating how that exemption will work. We have always had the ability for an individual to be exempt from the hotel motel surcharge tax if they stayed a certain number of days in a hotel motel, but we weren't very clear about it. So starting back in 2014, we paid Crawford and Associates to help us look at our hotel motel tax and monitor it, and they started suggesting at that point for us to clarify this. So this is our attempt to do so. It also clarifies the due date. So currently, the technical due date is the 1st of the month preceding or following the month the tax is collected. However, it's not actually due to be in our hands until the 20th. It then says if it's given to us 30 days after the due date, the penalty is 10%. If it's after 30 days, it's 25%. What we've ran into is hotels get confused and think the 30 days is from the 20th and not the 1st. So what I did is we changed it to where it was 10 days from the due date for the 10% penalty, and any days more than that, 25%. So the actual rates are not changing, we're just clarifying when they apply. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? So this is basically, if I heard you right, is a recommendation from our auditor.
Yeah, they're like our consultants.
Consultant, right.
The part about the permanent residents and then the section about the due dates is actually just from a problem I've experienced multiple times since I started here with confusion.
I'll make a motion to amend the ordinance as presented.
All right, thank you, sir.
Second.
All righty. Joe, I think you're up again, right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance amending portions of Chapter 25, taxation of the Shawnee City Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 25, defining permanent resident, providing for exemption, and clarifying timing of payment, providing for repeal, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 14. So we'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Ashley. Let's see, item 15, consideration of the following budget amendments. Do I need to read all three of those? General Fund 001 to adjust city manager and fire department budgets to account for changing needs. Hotel surcharge. Fund 106, providing for remodeling costs, and Capital Improvement Fund 301 to adjust budget for building maintenance and police technology needs. And Ashley, there you are.
All right, so this is just some cleanup that we realized needed to be done. Really, like about a month ago, then the meeting got canceled. It's just as, obviously, the fire department has not been going places, so they had some other needs elsewhere, and same, we had some needs pop up in other departments. And then for the hotel motel, it is for the remodel of the current building that they're moving into, and also the budget for the, building maintenance and police is just to cover some, we actually had some orders that we made for the police department that ended up falling in this fiscal year versus last fiscal year. So it's adjusting for that. And then we also needed to do some issues. We had some issues with our HVAC system. And so we need to get that taken care of. But I'm more than happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Any questions for Ashley? Good. Good on that end? All righty. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. All righty, so we have a motion and a second for the amendments. We'll call the question. I'm sorry. Travis and Bonnie, please. There we go. And motion passes 7-0. Acknowledgement of monthly sales tax and budget report for 16. So Ashley, you're up again.
I am. That's why I didn't move. Okay, so the good news is sales tax came in well in February. We sat at 5.22% above projected budget for sales tax, and we're sitting at 14.78% total year-to-date projected budget. At this moment, we are about 4% above prior year at this moment. Use tax also came in well. We were about 9% above projected budget, and year-to-date, we're sitting at about 2.4% above projected budget. So as a general, we're coming in very well, and there's nothing to be concerned of. And those percentages are against the new revised sales tax budget. So we are still above even our revised budget that much. As to the budget report, so we are there isn't really anything to be concerned of as of January 2021. I am sure that we'll probably see some blips once all of the costs from the cleanup of the snowstorm and all of that happens. But as of right now, we are doing okay and we're monitoring the situation. And but I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
That was one of the questions I was gonna ask was how long until we feel the impact of the, all of the extra man hours and all of the equipment.
So payroll will be felt this pay period.
Yeah.
And invoices will likely be felt, and Brad, you'd probably speak more to this probably next month, month and a half. Yeah, and so from the requisitions I've seen so far, which is what they enter for purchase orders, it has not been overly alarming. So I'm not as in panic mode or anything like that. It's just something that just forewarning, you might be like, wow, 501 budget disappeared fast.
Sure.
And that's just gonna be what
So
it is.
chances that any of that,
Yeah, I was gonna say, keep in mind that this, since FEMA was activated,
Right.
the cost for the response to the storm, those are, portion of those are reimbursable.
Okay, and I'm sure that.
Of course, it takes time to get those
Right,
dollars, but.
So ballpark, how quickly does that come in, or do we have a sense for that?
Not yet.
And I mean, and I know that's way out.
It requires a tremendous amount of documentation.
I would imagine.
That,
Yeah.
you know, emergency management has been working with Brad's team on collecting all of the payroll information and requisition information to document our efforts.
Absolutely.
But at this time, I don't have a
Yeah.
particular time.
There's no way of knowing.
We're not overly concerned about that.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna cause us a cash flow issue or anything like that. We're going to be fine in that regard.
Okay.
It's just going to be, take away my budget a little faster than I thought. So, is all.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're not in panic mode.
No,
That wouldn't be good.
not in panic mode.
I don't like that. Anybody else got anything else for Ashley? Okay. Yes, sir. Oh, I thought you were going to try to tell me something. It's hard to tell, isn't it? Thank you so much, Ashley. Keep bringing good news. All righty, so item 17, new business.
No new business.
Thank you, sir.
That's actually why I thought you were calling on me.
Nah, there you go. All righty, so commissioners' comments, I'm gonna change it up a little bit tonight just because, just do something different. You never get to go first. Let me start with you and go down that way, then we'll double back around here. Well, you're always complaining everything's used up. So I thought, well, I'm gonna put you on the spot first.
I mentioned city staff earlier, what a good job Brad and his crew did, our city manager being out there with them. I mean, for the guys' morale, that has to be awesome to know that we have leadership all the way to the top that's going to get out there and work with them. So I want to brag on that. Also want to thank the paper for reporting such great things. Our streets crew, I mean, I know the guys out there working but the guys doing clearing the streets did a fantastic job. So just proud of everyone that got us through all that. Did a great job. Also, kind of a long night, but and a lot of active discussion up here amongst everybody, and that's what it's about. Let's get out there and talk about it. So agree, disagree, at least we're having the discussions, so it's a good thing. I want to know.
I want to compliment the utility group and Chance. I'm still really happy how, I mean, it could have been so much worse than what it was. I know people, you see them heated because they don't have water or this or that. They don't realize what all is going on out there in the field. Had to be miserable out there. I felt for them. Not probably enough to go out there with them, but if I have to be honest. But, you know, what they went through, it was way more than I would ever expect them to have to go through. Street crew done a wonderful job keeping the roads clear. You know, I know it's still ongoing repairs, but they did a phenomenal job. You know, on another note, looks like COVID numbers keep coming down, you know, the mask mandate, which has been a hot topic, you know, obviously, none of us like it, but, the vaccines are coming around, you know, everything's looking good. The budget report, you know, is good, numbers are still good, so really, probably the way to communicate is probably the biggest concern I think everybody up here has. I don't know what the right way to do it is, or how to reach everybody, or get people involved. It's just, it's hard, you know, and you know, I wish some of us had the answers, but, yeah, I think people get involved in stuff when it directly affects them, and until it's affecting them, you know, they're pretty complacent to let people make decisions for them because they think it won't affect them. So, but I don't know what the right way to remedy that is, and, you know, hopefully we can get better at communicating, because I think we're pretty poor at it, just in stuff that we have been involved in, but, I think we can try to do better, and I think, you know, the public needs to do a little better job on their side, trying to find out what's going on in the community. Benny?
I agree with everything that's been said about city staff and all, but I want to add one department, and that's the police department, because they took care of us. They trudged through the snow and probably through streets that had not even thought about being plowed. And so, just congratulations to everybody.
Yeah, I want to first recognize all of our city staff. Brad and his teams just did an incredible job in really, really tough circumstances. I got out with, I guess, Mark, I was fortunate. Chance took me out, and I got to visit a crew. And I didn't stay very long, because I'm not that tough. But they worked so hard in really tough circumstances, and I think they deserve kudos and well-deserved. And also I just want to recognize our community, because I think our community recognized how hard they were working, and brought meals and brought thanks. And, you know, it's great to see that kind of community exist, and appreciation for one another. And so I thought that was great. I did get a request from emergency management to pass on, if you had winter storm damage of any type, to go to damage.ok.gov to report it. And they say that's very important. And our emergency management team did and is doing a great job in responding to this. And to further something Chance has sent to us, and I commented on a couple of weeks ago, situations like this are important, or show the importance that a local community is able to have emergency management staff in place, and doing a great job for us. I know this isn't a quick thing, but one of the things to me, when you look at the human toll that this had, really revealed the need in our community for public transportation. And that's not an easy conversation. There's not piles of money sitting around to fund it. It's not something that will ever be profitable. But in times like that, it's a life and death issue for many that need, if they need to go into their job, they don't need sidewalks are important, but they need a bus. And to me, that's an issue that I'm hoping we can tackle in the next little bit. And it's not an easy one to solve. But the next part, I typed this out because I'd like to read it because it's important to me. So on Friday, I was able to attend the tribal forum put on by Shawnee Forward and sponsored by the CPN. It was a wonderful opportunity to hear how tribal nations in our region have been affected by and responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. Their response to the challenges presented by COVID-19 have been outstanding. In addition to their response to the pandemic, I was excited to hear many of the economic development activities they have undertaken that will greatly benefit this region and those who live in it. Our city, our county, and our region are enriched by each of the tribal nations. Toward the end of the presentation, Chairman Barrett made a reference that stuck with me throughout the weekend, and I can't get away from it, and so hence tonight. He referenced comments made to him and several other tribal nation leaders by former representatives of the city of Shawnee nearly a decade ago. This comment was wrong It has no place in our dialogue. It must be rejected and repudiated in full. I've long held that we have incredible possibilities in our community because of the potential for amazing partnerships with tribal nations, county government, and city leadership. However, partnership is impossible if we do not first consider ourselves equals. While no one on this commission or current city staff is responsible for making the statement, if a statement is made in an official capacity, the acknowledgement of, rejection of, and apology for must be official as well. I can't speak in official capacity for the entire city, but in my capacity as sitting Ward 1 Commissioner, I feel a deep responsibility to say I am sorry for such offensive comments that were ever made. I apologize for the hurt and mistrust it has caused between us, and my sincere hope is that we can demonstrate our respect and honor going forward. A strong partnership between city, county, and tribal nations presents a unique opportunity for us to partner and improve the quality of life in our region and increase opportunities for our citizens. I believe that those I serve on this commission with share this respect for and a commitment to a healthy relationship and partnership with the tribal nations. I believe we are called to treat one another as we would want to be treated. Where we have fallen short, we must improve. Before anything, we are friends, we are neighbors, and we are children of God. As such, our actions must be those that reflect this reality. I believe we are on a path to a strong and healthy relationship with our tribal partners, but healthy relationships require us to acknowledge where we have been wrong and fallen short. I believe better days are ahead. My hope is that in time, our area will set the standard for how sovereign tribal nations, county government, and city governments can work together to increase opportunities for those we are all privileged to serve.
Nicely said.
Okay, I'll echo. I know we all feel very proud of our departments, Brad. Chance, I was really impressed that you were right there in the trenches with them. You responded to a couple of my needs and questions during that time. You were very responsive to me, and I really do appreciate it. Mayor, you were right there with them. I know we saw some of your photography, and I really think that the morale of the mayor, as well as the city manager being right there with our crews, our police, our fire, just did a tremendous job continuing to work in incredible odds. I know we're all saying this and we all believe it. We just, it's amazing what we have, and you all just came to the task, and really proud of all of you. One sad note, we've lost another gentle giant. Hank Land, our former police chief, has passed away. He was a great friend to many of us that have been around for a while, and going to miss Hank. And I think in the future there's some type of a service that might be planned. I don't think at this time, Mason, if I'm not mistaken, there's nothing planned at this time. Is that correct? Yeah. But let's all remember Hank. He was our chief of police and a dedicated city employee. And appreciate all of you, and appreciate my fellow members as well. Thank you.
I know we've all said this, but this is something that needs to be said over and over again. The response by city staff could not have been any better, and wanted to say thank you again for the long hours, the hard nights, and just being willing to put the need of others above yourself, and just thank you all for that. And also the citizens of Shawnee who were intentional about recognizing those amazing men and women that were working so hard in those unbelievable conditions. Thank you, Shawnee citizens, for rising to the task of recognizing that. Daniel, thank you for sharing that with us. Far too often, we sit back and say that somebody else's wrongs were not necessarily our wrongs, and we don't do enough to make them right. And I appreciate you taking the time to do that and giving us an opportunity to open up more dialogue into things that we could have done better on and need to do better on in the future. So thank you for that. And also to the other commissioners, thank you for working and taking the time to do this. This is not easy. The choices and stuff that we make up here, they don't come without some concern, without some worry, and without some hopes that we are doing the best for everybody, not just for the people that we see and speak with on a daily basis, but for all of Shawnee and his people. So, thank you all.
Well, you guys said a lot of good things. Can't say enough about city staff and what they've done for us the last couple weeks especially. I mean, those were horrible conditions to be out working in. I mean, it was just flat cold, and that's coming from a boy that grew up in New Hampshire. It was just flat cold, and no person should have been out in that kind of weather. No, forget about putting water lines back together and getting soaking wet while you're out there so cold. I mean, that's just absolutely horrible. The community, I think, as soon as they saw what you guys were doing, I know they rallied around you guys big time. I don't know how many restaurants donated food and drinks and just came out and gave you guys a pat on the back. And I mean, that says a lot for our community. I know folks were worried they didn't have water, and it was inconvenient for everybody. And I mean, that's, we all know that, but they saw what you guys were doing and how hard they were, out there working on it. And I think people really showed their appreciation. Chance, I appreciate you being out there with them. I mean, that's how you lead. And you did a really good job of that, in my estimation. I think lots of people saw that. What else? Daniel, I love your statement and agree wholeheartedly. We all live here together, and we ought to work together strongly. I mean, it just makes it a better place, and I think we can fix things that have gone badly in the past. And I know we have a lot better relationship now than we have had with our tribal neighbors. In fact, I was on the phone today with one of their leaders, had a really good conversation. So I mean, I think things are getting better and headed in the right direction. Anyway, another thing I want to do is I want to thank all of you guys for the conversations that we had tonight. I mean, I know it's getting late, so I'll try to get this wrapped up pretty quick. But, the idea isn't to get in and out of here in a hurry. I mean, there was more than one. There was 3 or 4 issues that we talked about for a long time. And I appreciate, how well that went. We don't always agree, and we're not going to. That's, ridiculous to think that we could, but we had a good civil conversation, and we made decisions, and time will tell whether we're right or not, but I appreciate, how you guys all work together and the conversations that we have. So with that, I'm going to be quiet, and we will.
Can I say
yes,
one more
sir,
thing?
absolutely.
Well, it made me think, none of us mentioned some of the most important people. I know we've all thought this, but the general public responded. We were asked to cut back on use of water, and people did. Talked to a lot of people that made some sacrifices. I know we had some industry that really struggled with trying to put out their product, and they were understanding, but they were also struggling. So I'd just like to give a shout out to the general public for responding and understanding and working.
And you kind of triggered another thought, and I know that's not what everybody wanted to hear, but our business leaders, they would call me, and I know, Chance, you talked quite a few of them too, and I'm sure you guys did too, and you tell them what was going on, and what you were giving them wasn't good news, but they were just so appreciative for just the straight, getting the skinny on things and the communication, and it was like, man, I just need to know how to plan my business, and they wanted the truth, and that's I know that's what we gave them, just without blinking an eye, and they really appreciated that, and just being able to deal with people on a level like that. I mean, that was great, it really was, and kudos to our business leaders in town for just handling things that way. I really did appreciate that. They just wanted the truth and to know about it as soon as they could, and that was great. That was great. All righty. So we will move on. So we will adjourn and go to the Airport Authority. Item 1 is consider approval of the consent agenda. And I don't see much in there, so we got.
So moved.
All righty. Thank you, sir.
Second.
That sounded like down there. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Let's call the question. Motion passes 7-0. New business?
Mr. Mayor, no new business.
Thank you, sir. We are adjourned. We will go to the Municipal Authority. Item 1 is consider approval of consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Aaron and Mark. All righty, let's call the question. And that also passes 7-0. I'm sorry. Oh, you got it. We got you. We got you. Sometimes it's hard to tell, isn't it? All righty. New business.
No new business.
Guess what? What is that?
Dinner time.
It
Stomach makes my throat.
Time to have pizza. So,
Please believe me when I say,